Hey, and welcome back to Westeros, everybody. This is Rusty Zimmerman coming at you live via Twitch and the Shadowcasters network, going back to torturing player characters in King's Landing. Today, I have to share a screen with my lovely wife, who is playing the heir to the house. My computer is unfortunately still at our local repair joint. So we are having to make do and share things like we're married and in love, and it's awful. But let's go ahead and introduce our player characters and the people that are playing them. And to keep it easy, I'm just going to hold down push to talk and bring in Felicia. Felicia, how's it going? What's your character doing?
Hi. I play Rhaena Nymerian. I am the heir to the house. And when we last left off, she was with everybody except Van in the same place in the woods, the Kingswood, having just slaughtered the Fox Knight. We didn't do it, though. We just helped.
All right, and next in line in the house is Erica. Erica, how's it going, and who are you playing?
Okay. Sorry. I'm playing Bela, the second oldest child, by just a few minutes.
All right, and what about next in line? How's it going, Robert? And what's your character?
Pretty good. I'm playing Luke Harris, the oldest son, and I have to say we did not slaughter a fox, like we brought the king's justice through a fox night.
An important bit of hair splitting. And I believe also present and loosing arrows at brigands was our final member of House Nymerian, played by Ash. Ash, how's it going?
Hi, I'm doing okay. I play Adam Nymerian, and when we last left off, he had just shot someone in the neck.
That is correct. That would be the Fox Knight that we were discussing, but I think you might have also got the last blow on another one of those bandits, too. So, it was pretty close. Yeah, you were taking scalps. And then last but not least, though I guess kind of least in Westerosi society, actually.
Oh.
The character, not the player. Clearly, Kevin would not be last in Westerosi society. He's a dude, sorry. But
Oh no.
in universe, the least in Westerosi society. How's it going, Kevin? We missed your last session.
I was in New Orleans. It's going great. As for who I'm playing, Vannon Rivers is well, he's a bastard, but only by birth. He's actually kind of a nice guy. At least I'm trying to play that way. Yeah, he was off horse shopping and meeting the mob and all kinds of stuff. But you can discover that
The
in
mob.
character dialogue. Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah, Kevin and I had a PM discussion about what Sir Vannon was up to. And you guys will get the opportunity to learn that fairly soon. Before that, though, we want to remind our viewers of a couple things for them to help learn. First off, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome, and thank you, and I hope you have a good time with the pre-Game of Thrones with us. But if you take a look in our video, up in the corner there is the Iron Throne, which you yourself can claim. With likes and subscriptions and cheers and all the other made-up Twitch currencies, you can take down hit points on the stream boss and unseat the ruler of Westeros in King's Landing and claim the Iron Throne for yourself. When you claim the Iron Throne, you give a destiny point to a player character of your choice or a non-player character of your choice. So it could be one of the young scions of House Nymerian, one of their allied NPCs, or any of their not-so-allied NPCs. If you just have a favorite from the show or the books, or from our episodes so far. Those destiny points can have real mechanical in-game stuff where they can let you roll extra dice and keep extra dice and take dice away from some bitch trying to stab you in the kidney, or they can just manipulate the plot in a couple of small ways. Often, if it goes to an NPC, I'm going to manipulate the plot in a couple of small ways. But as we ramp up into more conflict and combat, you might start seeing NPCs rolling and keeping extra dice too. So let's keep those destiny points coming. Last, though, whoever claims the Iron Throne at the end of an episode is the king or queen of Westeros, lord or lady of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, protector of the realm, yada, 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 all the rest of those bitchin' titles. And that person gets to give a royal boon to one whole noble house. Or I guess other organization if it comes up later in the game. But yeah, instead of picking one character, you get to give a great big, fluffy, narrative, mechanical bonus to your favorite house in all of Westeros. So far, we've seen one of those boons go to House Nymerian, and the very next bit of gameplay was a flashback scene to their grandfather, Lord Maekar, handing out gold coins like full-size Snickers at Halloween. We had another royal boon go to House Will, which we're going to see some more of that come to fruition today, but it did start last session as the noble house's cousins in House Will started to see some luck go his way. Last session, the noble boon went to House Baratheon of King's Landing, the noble family of King Robert, who sits the Iron Throne. And what we ended up doing there, as you will discover this session, is a pretty big boon that I will point out when it comes up in the plot. So, make sure you're beating the stream boss, make sure you're handing out those destiny points to the characters that you want to help, or opposite the characters that you want to hinder, and try to seize the Iron Throne at the end of the episode, and you get to completely shape the narrative of our game and guide and steer it in various directions that our beleaguered, belabored, beloved players may or may not approve of, but it doesn't matter because they're just players. So, without further ado, a quick recap. Last session, you guys got settled in here in King's Landing. You made some new friends with kind of the jock bro Nathan Lugas and the grieving but curvaceous and bold widow, their sister Marita Lugas, and then the bookish and lean Orton Lugas, who surprisingly was the one that decided to go on a moonlight stroll with you guys and the dashing, dangerous Dornishman, your cousin, Lord Will of Will. And then you guys just kind of went for a walk in the woods and killed some dudes. Is basically how I remember it. So you succeeded in hunting down the Fox Knight, Lord Clayton Arche, after a busy day of shopping and drinking and having fun in King's Landing. You capped off with a moonlight stroll and some murder in the woods, like a first date should. But suspiciously absent throughout that drama was, ironically, the best woodsman in your party, Sir Vannon Rivers, the bastard and ward of your house. He was last seen going off to do some horse shopping, and you did expect that horse shopping to take some time, because he is pretty well trained, especially in training horses and getting them to like him and that sort of thing. He spent a lot of time with the Master of Stables back home in Wyvern's Rest, and there's a reason that you doled out coin to young Rivers and sent him off to go investigate the horse flesh of the markets of King's Landing, and the horse flesh on display from knights that were here to trade as a means of kind of bragging about the quality of the bloodlines of war horses that they have back homes, and merchants that have come to visit anytime a tourney goes anywhere. So you've got, the stables of King's Landing, but then also the stables of all sorts of visiting knights, which there are dozens of from all over Westeros. So he had a busy and a long day, And then he heard that you guys were off in the woods. And then he succeeded off screen on some tracking tests. And so we're actually going to pick up with Sir Vannon rushing towards the sound of conflict and arriving in the waning seconds of that fight where we left off 2 weeks ago as Lord Clayton Arche, the Fox Knight, reeling in the saddle from an arrow fired by young Adam, stabbed multiple times by the spears of House Nymerian, wielded by Lady Bela and Sir Lucaris, bleeding in the saddle, falling from the saddle, barely holding on in the saddle, was then messily and clumsily kind of two hands on the sword, overhand, trying to clumsily split wood, longsword shot in the face by the bookish and lean young Orton Lugas, who himself lost his footing in the pure overhand momentum of his clumsy charge, and then was able to prop himself up on hands and feet, stare down in the split face of Lord Clayton Arche, and make a mess as he lost his lunch examining his own handiwork. So we're going to pass it over to Sir Vannon, who hasn't taken action this combat round, kind of. And we're going to let him that's what you run into. There are a couple of bodies over on the far side of the clearing with the Lord Will of Will, the cousin of House Nymerian, is cleaning his blade over those two. And the rest of them are around a spooked and kind of high-stepping, panicked warhorse, and the butchered body of a late middle-aged fellow in pretty heavy-looking armor. So, Vannon, have fun with that.
So, no one left to kill then, huh? Alright, in that case, I'll just, rush in. Well, approach the warhorse, try to calm it down, because maybe we can keep a warhorse, guys.
Where have you been?
I've been horse shopping. Also got beat up in the market. Also stopped by Turbo Mart. Yes, I hate King's Landing.
We got a horse too.
Go ahead and give me an animal handling, training, or charm. Whichever of those specialties you have higher. I know both of them get a bonus from that quality of yours. But go ahead and give me that roll, Kevin, while you guys continue to roleplay.
I'm gonna go with charm. Just shush, very hoarse whisperer kind of thing going on. So that's.
I'm gonna.
The horse we found had a medal on it.
Is everyone all right?
That's also going on.
He does not look all right.
I hurt, but I think I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna start tending to my own wounds, trying to find out where I've been damaged, kind of like padding around, seeing where I'm bleeding from. So I took some pretty heavy wounds from that combat. I want to make sure that I'm not haven't broken a bone or something that's really going to impede me.
A quick mechanical distinction: you took injuries, not wounds.
Right.
I mentioned that. Right, and it's just because it's important in game. Injuries tend to heal after about a day. Wounds would be what you guys were doling out to him, and they tend to heal after weeks or more. So, an inspection of those of you that did take some damage, you've got a few minor cuts, but it's mostly contusions. He was just laying into you with these bone-jarring, heavy overhand strikes, also from up higher than you. And you were able to block or use your armor and shields for most of them, but it just really wailed on you. You're feeling pretty sore, but you're pretty sure if you take it easy for the next day or so, you'll probably be able to heal up okay prior to kicking off the tournament.
Yes. So running my fingers kind of around the big dents now in my armor, kind of happy that I don't have to worry about repairing it because it's about to get melted down to make new armor.
Maybe not melted down, but yes,
Reforged.
repurposed. Let's say, but yeah, it definitely saved you with this because it was a big dude that knew what he was doing, with just a big heavy sword and those terrible overhand strikes. It is quite a bit more fun to be the one on horseback than not, in that sort of fight. Speaking of the horse, it is an old courser, but it has seen more than its fair share of bloodshed. So its blood is up because of the fight and the noise, and its rider falling off. But it's able to be calmed down pretty handily by Sir Vannon. It's not in the prime of life anymore, but it was clearly doing a serviceable job, if you ask Lady Bela or Sir Lucaris, who were on the receiving end of a couple of hoofs and a half-hearted bite or two. So yeah, it's not in the best of shape, but it's a perfectly serviceable horse.
All right. Gain horse.
Rusty, you said this guy was loyal to the Targaryens in the war, correct?
Indeed. And you've had, a couple minutes of swirling, nightmarish bloodshed in the moonlight to rack your memories about House Arche. And you do remember them being among the roles of the loyalist houses. He was certainly screaming some crazy pants stuff. You seem to remember he mistook your twin for Rhaegar himself, seeing that silver hair in the moonlight, and he was yelling some anti-Rhaegar stuff. There have certainly been rumors, and your grandfather, Lord Maekar, has shared them, that there was a bit of a schism between King Aerys and even other loyalists there at the end. But it would certainly seem that Lord Arche was buying into all that very, very wholeheartedly. His bellowings during the fight left little doubt that he was on the side of House Targaryen.
Does he still have house members left alive?
No.
No.
He was the last member of his house, and actually House Arche was formally dissolved in the wake of Robert's rebellion because he would not submit. He was the last member. His son died in the fighting. He had no other heirs, and he would not bend the knee, despite Robert's... Again, in the perspective of House Nymerian, it was not terribly open-handed or even-handed of Robert Baratheon to accept the surrenders that he did and then strip you all of some of your lands and stuff. But he also didn't kill everyone and put heads on pikes everywhere. So compared to the rest of the history of Westeros, Robert was comparatively fair and generous in the wake of the war, but only if you submitted and bent the knee, which your grandfather, Lord Maekar, begrudgingly did. And you still lost some lands. You lost your bannermen, House Dannet. They were given over to House Ironwood, who had risen up in rebellion, remember? And, so you still lost some stuff, but he didn't kill everyone.
Okay. Yeah, so the reason I'd asked is I would have tried to collect the armor and send it back to his house, but if there's no surviving members, there's no reason to do that.
Yeah. There's really nowhere left to send it.
Okay.
He was one of the few that would not bend the knee, so their old tower, it wasn't like a castle or full-on hall, it was a tower, but it was actually taken down stone by stone.
Wow.
It was one of the few lessons that Robert was out to teach at the end of the rebellion, so they actually cast that shit down. It didn't even go to a rival or whatever. He was just like, no, fuck this, House Arche is no more.
Okay, very well. Well, then in that case, the armor and such will help prove the identity of this man when we bring him back.
Yes, the armor itself, like Lord Arche, like his horse, is past its prime. There are a few holes in it. You can see where it's been kind of crudely hammered and beaten back to flat. There are a few rents in the metal where once upon a time he took some supremely powerful blows. That sort of thing. It's patchwork, like the mail underneath is a couple different sets of ring mail and chain mail, that sort of thing. But it does have that stylized full body fox of House Arche across the breastplate over the heart.
Yeah, that's the important bit.
Yeah, so it's still identifiable. I just didn't want you to think it was in like super pristine
Oh
condition.
no! I just care that it would help other people be able to identify who it was. So if we just walk in town and say, "Hey, we took care of this guy. Just believe us," one of those kinds of things.
So
Honest.
Oris will come walking up a few moments later with basically all the party's horses in his two hands. Not like on his shoulders, but he's got him by the reins. It's a fairly simple, if grisly matter, to take Lord Arche out of the bulk of his plate and mail and to strap it to a horse somewhere. Orton has gotten to his feet and is kind of looking shaky. You can kind of see the whites of his eyes in the moonlight and stuff. And they settle on young Adam.
Yeah, Adam will have kind of limped up to him and kind of tried to kind of guide him away from the corpse, because I think him being next to that is making it worse. So kind of like take him to a nearby tree to lean against that to steady him, and just kind of stay with him and try and calm him down a bit.
Yeah, there's a little known medical and in fact psychological fact that staying really close to the body of a geriatric that you and your friends just slaughtered that's also covered in vomit, that is not great for a weak stomach.
No.
Most people don't know that, but I learned that in school. So yeah, he is pretty shakily guided away. At one point, he kind of weakly is like, "My sword. Perhaps I'll just leave it there." Yeah, just kind of. He's very easily kind of guided away. Hands are shaking a little bit, but yeah, he doesn't seem to be injured. Just really rattled by, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be trying to soothe him.
And that's easily enough done without need of a roll. The assumption is that you'd be making some, persuasion plus empathy type of stuff, but Adam has been routinely roleplayed as a decent chap, and he likes you because he is also bookish. You are also bookish. He's pretty sure that you've never taken a 3-foot-long cleaver to somebody's face, but you are still, able to compassionately guide him through processing that. And also, you're like the only person here he's bigger than. So maybe the kindness coming from you feels a little more comforting.
In the middle of that comforting, I'm going to grab the sword that he used, kind of wipe it clean, bring it over to him, put my hand on his shoulder and say, "The first one's always the hardest. That was a good solid hit," and then hand it back to him.
Yeah, how messed up is the face?
Yeah.
Is it still identifiable, or is it gone?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of split. Like I said, he was reeling in the saddle, kind of hanging sideways, and then just this like straight up and down sword swing. So it's kind of catty-cornered how his head was, and it was just thunk. Yeah, it's a mess. I would
should we
not
take the head?
suggest. Yeah.
I mean, the question is, do you want it?
Well, in case the armor's not enough to identify him.
I don't think we need to take the body back. We can dispose of them here.
Oh no, I just meant the head.
The proof.
I mean, on one hand, like, proper burial's probably the right thing, but we should at least give the head a rinse.
Hey, you can pull out a water skin and just rinse the head off.
How
Is that
about
what
we
you mean?
compromise? We'll wash half the head. We'll take the other half. It's already been bisected, it seems.
I don't think anyone's going to identify this guy based on his head. Like, no one knows what he looks like.
The Maesters will have their work cut out for them.
With them being brigands, and particularly the Fox Knight, a renowned brigand for a decade and a half or so, it is completely appropriate to just leave them strung up somewhere in the woods.
Okay,
yeah. Because remember, bandits are kind of non-people.
Oh, that's right. I had mistakenly thought night.
It would not be unseemly to bury him as a former lord or whatever, but it's not inappropriate to treat him like a bandit instead. It's one of those either or things. Again, if he had family for you to return the body to, that would probably change things, and his status and his noble birth would demand a certain set of circumstances. But the fact that he doesn't have a family anymore and that he's been declared outlaw for so long, again, just pulling some rope out of a saddlebag and just leaving them strung up somewhere is also plenty. As far as proof or evidence goes, remember, this is not Law and Order King's Landing. You guys have members of 3 different noble houses, including Stormlanders and Dornishmen agreeing, which is a pretty rare thing. So nobody's likely to doubt your word about what went down or anything, just because you've got Wills and Imerians and Alugas. So again, you don't necessarily need to worry about some of the social niceties of an actually civilized people, because you are in Westeros, and they kind of have their own social norms.
I say we just string him up with the brigands. He betrayed his noble standing when he joined these low-life, good-for-nothing thieves. And I sneer and spit as I say that.
I approve of this plan.
May I offer Go ahead, Mr. Bannon.
Don't you believe that bringing back some proof of this would serve to put us in better standing?
Oh, the armor, for sure. But the body? Nah, just dump it.
If I may offer a dissenting opinion, whatever he is now, he was once an ally of our house. Maybe we should bury him.
Here, Oris will speak up for the first time.
Yeah, I met Oris, by the way.
Have you a shovel? I don't.
Well, I suppose that probably decides it then.
I go back to my horse where I always have stuff.
I mean, we could just put it somewhere and put some dirt or stones on it. I know it's not a proper burial, but it's also not. Yeah, it's complicated.
You're struggling because you wish to keep peace with the stranger. And the stranger will accept him, whether he is buried, burned, or left to hang like a brigand.
If that is your wish, sister.
It is.
All right. Between the will of Will and Oris alone, even just your NPCs have plenty of muscle for slinging a rope up and over a good sturdy branch. The Kingswood has no shortage of good sturdy branches, and the bodies can be hauled up in fairly short order, and things tied off and them left there. It takes longer than normal, probably just because it's dark, and that would also make the digging or trying to do a cairn take that much longer also. But before too terribly long, you're able to strip the armor, dispose of the bodies. Chat, give me a number between 5 and 15, and this is how many silver pieces you guys will happen to find if anybody decides to roll the bodies. And that's going to be about it. There's no other kind of legalistic stuff that really needs to happen here. So you find 6 silver pieces, 1 on each of the brigands, 4 in the coin purse of Lord Arche himself. And what else are we planning for the scene? Any major player character interactions? You're able to peacefully make your way back off the fringes of the Kingswood and towards the pavilion. So the GM is handing the reins to the party.
I will approach Bela, say, you all right, my lady?
I look down at myself. I've been worse. I'll sleep this off. I'll be okay for the tourney.
As you say.
In the distance, you hear Lucaris yell kind of sarcastically, "I'm okay too, Vannon."
But
That I have no doubt, my lord.
I return
I
the
look
question with
around.
another question. You mentioned earlier something about a fight in the city. What did you do?
Yeah.
That's a nice way to phrase it.
I was accosted by some of what I can only assume other riders in the tourney who told me it would be in my best interests not to win.
Wait. Someone accosted Oris as well.
Yes, they seem to have a particular fondness for beating upon bastards.
And
Or just people.
and who
connected to
was
us.
this? Did they have any banners?
I'm afraid I can't say for certain. They were cunning enough there, but I did wound one of them. Give his arm a good crack. Should be identifiable by that, if nothing else.
Someone was giving Oris trouble as well.
Phrase.
Not the worst guess, but perhaps presumptive.
I'm all right. They only stabbed me the once.
I take a look around in our flickering torchlight. Where is Landseer? The knight we followed out here?
Oh yeah, where is he?
An old drunk.
The old
If it has
drunk,
wine on
yes.
it,
Yeah, he
if it
went
has
off.
wine on it, it'll be him.
Now that somebody remembered to give a damn, a cursory inspection of the edges of the clearing show that the crossbow bolt that went astray early in the fight
Oh.
found Sir Doris Landseer in one of the eyes, and now land is truly all he sees. He is lying face down in his rusted ringmail at the edge of the clearing with the bolt protruding from the back of his head.
Oh no.
Don't give me that look, wife.
Well, there's naught to do but bring him back.
Agreed.
Him will be bring back, yes. So let's get him over the back of one of these 8 million horses.
Yeah, you are able to with Vannon's help keeping the horse calm, you are able to get him up and over the saddle of his own horse, which is itself a well past its prime Rouncy, a humbler mount than the Fox Knight's courser, but perhaps of an age. They're both got kind of gray around the muzzles and such, but it's a placid enough beast that you're able to get him up and over the saddle and balanced there. And with that, we'll go back to the PCs and their discussion on the walk back to camp.
These attacks, we have to assume are not coincidence.
Well, not those in the city, anyway.
Well, yes.
Well, we knew people weren't going to like us.
There's one thing not to be liked, it's quite another to be accosted in the streets and be told to throw a tourney.
Perhaps, but
There's more. If you remember, we heard tales being told of us attacking the small folk of another house from the inn. It was of the. They said that our people had attacked the small folk of House Dennett.
Shouldn't it be something of a point of order for us to speak with officials or get to the bottom of this at some rate? The good name of the house should certainly be defended or at least addressed. Saying nothing might be seen as acceptance by some.
So,
they should at least be aware of it.
There's been war over less.
Now, out of character, you guys weren't especially accosted by gold cloaks. Nobody bearing the royal seal has delivered messages to your pavilion or anything like that. No charges have been brought up against you, but you did hear those rumors on the road, and you've gotten some dirty looks, and you may recall some of the insults that Oris faced from those those squires from House Frey was, which of the butchers do you serve? The cripple, the two sluts, or the ow, stop punching me in the face. But they did refer to you as butchers, and you've gotten some dirty looks and heard a couple whispers, but you haven't had any formal word from the crown or anything like that.
Well, I mean, we're within our rights to answer insult.
But to what? To tavern goers?
Perhaps we need more information.
Well, perhaps try and find who started the rumors.
Right, well, perhaps Vannon or someone else could, maybe ask around in some of the taverns. And Reyna, maybe you could use some political maneuvers to find out some information from some other third-party house.
We probably need to stick to friendly houses then, because
Exactly.
because the ones who don't like us are going to know who we are and aren't going to tell us anything.
Nothing good.
No.
Or, since we are noble house, we can take it directly to King Robert.
Running to the king with our tail between our legs because somebody said a nasty word of us would not look good.
It wouldn't, but seeking the king's justice does imply that the king be involved.
Not inherently a good thing.
I'm not convinced he's going to care that much.
Or that he'll side with our house.
Indeed.
Exactly. So we must first impress him with our performance at the tourney. He is a simple man and believes in the power and the righteousness of his might. Might speaks to him.
May I suggest we speak more carefully in the presence of others?
We're in the woods. This is.
I look around.
Did you say you look around? Is that what you said?
At the non-house members here.
Oh, son of a bitch. I forgot he was here.
No reason we can't ask them.
Actually, that's right. He's right there. Look at the sick kid.
Sir Orton, his eyes are still a little wide, and he's breathing more heavily than he should be. He was able to kind of shakily get up on his saddle. He was a little clumsy again in his armor and with his sword at his hip. Again, he's not the sort of lord that is comfortable with the sword and used to it. And you remember when you were first wearing a sword everywhere, you bumped into everything and yada yada. Yeah, that's still him. and he's not being as jolly on the way back. Remember, on the way out here, he was all about the historical quirks of, a Stormlander following a will and a bunch of Dornishmen into the woods to kill a Targaryen loyalist, and, well, what a queer band of bedfellows we are, and that sort of thing. He's just kind of quiet this time. He doesn't seem to really have registered what you guys have been saying, and he certainly hasn't been offering advice.
Well, he doesn't seem to be paying attention, so we'll just go on back to town. Now,
I'll look at Sir Will and ask him if he's heard anything of these rumors.
I'm sorry, cousins. I've been following rumors of an altogether different sort. Trying to track down Scorpion and that sort of thing. No one spoke ill of a Dornish house where I could hear it, but that's not terribly uncommon.
Would you mind keeping your ears open, and if you do hear something, to let us know?
I could answer it myself if you'd prefer, but yes, not to worry, of course. I always listen for people insulting my king.
Well, definitely keep our ears open as we go forward.
All right, then. Nothing else of particular note happens as you make your way back to the edges, or from the edges of the Kingswood and out towards the tourney grounds and the pavilion fields. It looks almost eerie at night compared to during the day, because all of the rainbow colors of every noble house in Westeros, it feels like, they're muted in gray and kind of monochrome in the moonlight. You see some fires going. A lit campfire in a given kind of pavilion site is often kind of a casual invitation for people to come by and hang out and converse. A few of them just keep their fires going overnight because that's easier than starting up a new fire each time, and they might have pages and squires enough. So there are pockets of light. You're not like stumbling in the dark or anything like that, but compared to the hustle and bustle of the pavilion grounds and the tourney fields in the daytime, it's kind of eerie, almost like post-apocalyptic color-washed movie in a way, compared to all the motley colors and the life and the hustling, bustling small folk and the activity of this place at, noon today, in the afternoon when you ran into the gold cloaks and those fray little shits and all that good stuff. But making your way through here now at close to midnight, probably after midnight, it's pretty eerie just how quiet and calm it is. But you're able to get to the pavilion tents and decide who's going where from there. You've got the horses can all be stabled here. Some of the horses can be stabled there at the Green Tree. So it's time to decide who is sleeping where again. And then we'll have a pretty casual day planned tomorrow in terms of obligations you had before tonight's outing. It was dropping armor off again and double checking your order with Tobo Mott. And then there's really nothing on the schedule until the opening feast of the tournament this evening. So your time is yours until then to figure out what you guys are doing as you get to your tourney pavilion.
Is there time enough for me to heal up all my wounds before the tourney, or would that require some specific attention?
Again, remember they're injuries, not wounds. I know I keep being pedantic about it, but it's because it does matter in game.
Absolutely.
Much like Bela, yours are injuries, not wounds, but they're also just you got a good beating. outside of the mottled light of the moonlight in the Kingswood, you guys can see that he got roughed up, kind of a split lip, a little bit of a, black eye, swollen cheek, that sort of thing. But they're both just injury levels, and you're sure that you will be fine and able to heal up before the turn starts. You might not look as good as you would like going to the feast in 12, 16-ish hours, but you think you'll be fine by the time the fighting starts a day and a half from now.
If anything, the king will appreciate that I've clearly been roughhousing. How'd you get that? Oh, let me tell you, my lord.
So, who's staying at the pavilions and who's heading back to the Green Tree?
I'm going back into town. I need to clean up and maybe find a woman for the night. Adam, Van, would you like to come?
Someone should see to the horses, but if that's taken care of, it would be good to catch up with you on a more informal basis.
I look at Oris. Does he look willing to do this? All right, Fannin, you're free for the night.
My lady. Lead on, my lord.
And Adam?
Hmm?
We are going to the city. Would you like to?
Oh my god, he's so cute.
Clean up. Find a warm bed.
I mean that sounds nice, but I mean my bed at the pavilion's fine. I
won't pressure you, brother.
With sort of an aside to one sec. As an aside to Adam, my lord, the Green Tree might be a good place to gather intelligence.
Oh, good point. Yeah. All right. I'll come along then. But don't, I'm not going to get drunk or anything though.
On purpose.
Yeah, Cousin Will just gives that bright tooth smile. Well, I certainly am. Nothing like wine and a woman after a good fight.
4 drinks
I don't
later.
like you, cousin.
That doesn't sound half bad myself. I think I shall join you.
Oh, I'll definitely be going back to the Green Tree. Thank you.
Blush,
All right,
smile,
then.
keep it to myself.
Oris will tend to the horses, etc. He kind of looks questioningly at the lot of you as he makes his way down the line of horses that no one's riding right now, and gets to Sir Joris's. He stops and kind of shuffles from foot to foot, and just what do I do with this one, my lords, my ladies?
Well, we can hang on. I mean, we want to hang on to it for now. It's not like he's using it.
When I was checking out the horse, does it look like it's of any exceptional breeding?
Neither of them do, no. To clarify, this was Sir Joris's horse, Sir Joris Landseer, who is using it right now.
Oh. Right.
Oh, okay.
We have
Of any of the captured horses?
No, neither of the captured horses are of remarkable breeding.
Okay,
But remember, one of them has a body across the back of it right now, and Oris is asking what to do with it.
Yeah.
We can take it to a sept.
Which house was that? Landseer?
Yeah.
Just a hedge knight, not a...
Oh, okay. So no family to speak to or report of. Okay, well then, yeah.
Landseer as in he sees lots of lands because he wanders a lot, because he's a hedge knight.
Well,
So we'll take him to the sept and have him properly interred, I believe.
Very well.
I mean, perhaps then the the horse could go towards some kind of donation to them for dealing with this in the middle of the night?
Absolutely.
Indeed.
I can take care of the business if you would like to get on to the fun.
As for the other, we could certainly keep it as a spare, and all else failing, sell it before we leave.
Yeah, the Fox Knight's horse, Oris, is already unsaddling and brushing down and stuff. He didn't hesitate with that one. But the one that still had the body on it, he was just like, So, that is also decided. That was kind of the last decision that needed to be made from this point. So, it sounds like the Lady Reyna, heir to the house, will be taking the horse and the body to the Sept and trying to find some Silent Sisters. I'm not going to roleplay that out because I don't have to, because they're Silent Sisters. It's just also not going to be super fun. The rest of you were headed to the Green Tree, and we're just going to jump cut to there. Sir Nathan Lugas is still up and drinking. This is not a terribly big surprise to anyone, but yeah, he's still hanging out. He's up mid-song. He's got a girl on either side, and they're kind of swaying back and forth. He's spilling a little bit of ale, but nobody tells him. Their sister Marita is nowhere to be seen, and there's always just a kind of unremarkable handful of down on their luck sellswords, etc., etc. No other NPCs of note are present.
Well, I'm going to get some wine and go across the street.
All right, then. I'm not going to roleplay with you at the Pillow House across the street. Sorry, Robert. My wife is here.
Later.
What's going on?
I'm gonna get some wine and some bread, just to get something to eat while drinking.
No problem at all. A copper piece or two will certainly cover it. Your cousin, Lord of House Will, also gets himself that a rasher of bacon and commences to drinking, kind of eyeing the pair of girls on Sir Nathan. Orton Lucas kind of forces a weak smile and then winces at his brother's singing, but doesn't look to be taking point socially.
Did Orton get a drink?
He has not asked for one.
I will get a drink.
Okay.
I will get a drink for him. Say, this is on me. You ruined this.
You should probably get a little something to eat, even if you don't feel like it, just because you kind of emptied yourself out there.
He nods a little shakily. Don't tell my brother that part, maybe. And he looks kind of earnestly at the few of you that are standing there.
I won't bring the words.
I bring a flagon, but it's full of water. Set that beside, wink at him, and move on.
He looks content to drink up, not water. It's King's Landing. It could be some especially watered down ale or that sort of thing, but nobody drinks the water in King's Landing.
Okay,
But
good point.
some
Watered
weak
down.
ale. Yeah, weak ale is fine. So he will drink, and he picks at some bread a bit. His brother is still kind of roaring and singing and doesn't seem to have noticed that you guys are back just yet. He's kind of looking the other way and half-heartedly kind of circling with the girls and that sort of thing.
We should probably tell him we're back.
Yeah, he'll catch on eventually.
I've got a question. I assume you don't have to take the mummer quality to have a decent singing voice?
you can sing along in a tavern just fine without it.
I know. I'd just like to have myself brawn-like capacity for singing, but not professional.
Yeah, it's just no. You can do it, but no one's going to give you any money.
So, a couple moments later, the awkwardly circling trio of Nathan Lugas, and he's got a petite blonde girl under one arm, and a tall, leggy brunette under the other, which is part of why they're probably circling awkwardly, because he keeps using the taller one as the pivot point, and the other one has to do bigger steps. So they circle and kind of stumble.
That's just reading.
And then the song cuts out as he goes, "Oh, the hunters return! Look at my baby brother didn't lose his sword." And he starts over towards you lot, disentangling himself from his pair of tavern wenches, and stumbling a bit, but heading over in your direction, full of good cheer and bad breath.
I'll raise my tankard and say, "Here's to victory."
Nathan will cheerfully lift his own mug. Orton gives kind of a weak little shaky-handed toast. But yeah, that is received cheerfully. And then Nathan yells, "And to my victory in the tilts this 7 day. And our victory in the melee.
Hey,
Though how we will manage it with
Huzzah.
my brother is luck alone, I'm sure."
Luck favors the bold.
More luck for us then.
Indeed.
Plenty bold.
So it looks like he's just gonna kind of rib his brother for a while, and Orton doesn't look to be particularly in the mood to speak up about it. But that's the general thrust.
I mean, where I can, I will try and deflect those by kind of talking him up a bit more, or kind of, I'm not going to let him go too hard on Orton.
Did he tell you the story about the first time we sparred? Did he trip on his sword?
No, he
Did
didn't.
he fall off his horse in the dark?
He did neither of those things. He acquitted himself very well.
Did he? Glad your snark and grumpkin hunt went without hitch then.
Well, you see, it's quiet
I
once
think-
you've got to watch.
I think that Rusty said I could show up whenever at this point, so I'm gonna come in. And I'm carrying the packet we had, the wrapped up armor from Arche, and just read the broom. And then come over and drop the armor on the table where Orton and Adam are sitting, and look right at Nathan. And like, your little brother got the killing blow on the Fox Night. A traitor.
Orton kind of queasily looks away from the armor as you say that, but Nathan takes a half step back, because it's a big fucking bundle of armor too. You know, even just the breastplate and like any other original pieces of armor that had the sigil on it, like it's a big heavy thing. But he kind of takes a half step back and then goes, "Around on the house to the glory of Lugas."
There you go.
And he seems to completely forget any sort of taunting that he was up to 15 seconds ago. And is instead just like, "Yay, I'm the heir. My house is awesome. Go team." So yeah, just that sort of mercurial temper shift that comes from being a good bit drunk.
And a Lucas.
Any other particular plans for the evening?
Since I didn't get in on any of the skullduggery and intriguing last time, I'm gonna see what I can do to question people as surreptitiously as I can about the rumors of our banditry and raiding.
It is late enough at night that there really isn't anyone to question here, and the handful of sellswords that you do still see are ones that you did originally see reporting, or at least answering questions for Cousin Will. So it looks like if they'd heard stuff, you probably all would have.
If the well is dry, then I'll drink the wine.
So where is Luke?
Oh, he went to the whorehouse across the road.
Of course he did. Very well. We'll find time to chat later. I think it has been a very full day, and that tomorrow we have even more things to do. The feast starts at sunset. At sunset, and we will all be in attendance. Is Oris planning on coming? Is Oris planning on coming, Adam?
Yes.
Right. Then.
Hang on. I'm not Oris's keeper.
You're kind of the one that told Oris he was going. That's why you were buying him fancy clothes. So, yeah. Even is Oris planning on attending is kind of putting it a little generously. But yes.
Yes, I'm bringing my pet along.
All right then. Fannin, how did the horse shopping go? I'm afraid I missed that part of your day.
Well, splendid news there. Fine horses all around. And, no less, some change. Hand them back their coin.
Change!
Wow. Remarkable job.
Excellent. So, again, you caught no hint of any sort of identity for the people who accosted you.
I'm afraid not, my lady. But, as I said, I did wound one of them. It's possible if I heard their voice again, I might recognize them.
Did you pick up an accent?
King's Landing / Crown's Lands?
Truth be told, nothing that stands outside of the localities.
Very well.
Certainly, if they were Stormlanders, it would make sense.
Perhaps in the future we shall not venture off one at a time. It seems that when we do, each member has been attacked.
I'm inclined to agree, my lady.
Perhaps we should try not to have any of us traveling alone while we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Then someone should go rejoin Oris at the pavilion.
Funny you should say that. I was just about to do that. Good night.
Luke is
Good night, Adam.
He doesn't count, I guess.
All right. Now, who will volunteer to go across the street?
I suppose that duty falls to me. Ladies,
Good evening.
exempt
Twist us
by
off.
the local pillow house.
all right. Any other particular plans of note? Adam, you are able to make it out to the pavilion grounds unmolested, and to reacquaint yourself with your cot and sleeping, like kind of bedroll-y stuff there in your pavilion tent there. Oris is fine. When you get there, the horses are all tended to and nibbling on some hay.
Good job, Oris.
Thanks, my lord. Anything else people have planned for the evening? All right, then. In the morning, and really before the feast, you guys only had one big thing on the docket, and that was returning your armor to Tobo Mott so he could get back to work on it prior to the tilts and or the melee as needed. Who would like to go for that scene?
I'll go.
Okay.
And someone else, please join me.
And Oris is gonna
I'm here.
go because Oris has like the cart with all the armor in it, so it's gonna be like Oris and someone, basically. So
You can go too, Van. We don't
Yeah.
have to not go.
Yes.
all right, so the three of you will be able to make your way. Everyone else is just assumed to be kind of resting up. There is an assumption of asking around about the rumors concerning your house. Not much of note comes up from just kind of nigh random questioning. If people get an idea for an NPC in particular that they may already know or want to meet or whatever, let me know. But for now, the action is going to be at the Street of Steel again. And you've both been here before. It is, if anything, not only as cacophonous as the other day, but even louder. Because every single smith is, putting all of their apprentices to work as the tourney gets closer. Everyone's just working that much harder. That many more kind of desperate orders are coming in, etc., etc. So it's a racket, but at Tobo Mott's shop at the end of the Street of Steel, it's actually a mess. And you see Tobo Mott himself is sweeping the floors, while his big apprentice lad Gendry is adjusting some armor and weaponry on a shelf that everything's all crookedy on. And it looks like they're cleaning up after some sort of problem, and they both kind of start as they see you in the corner of their eye. And then they relax again, and Master Mott makes his way over to you. Says, "Oh, apologies, lady, sir. We've had a busy morning."
What
No.
do you mean?
No trouble, I hope, Master Smith.
The apprentice boy snorts and glowers and kind of shakes his head as he's working, and he goes, and then Tobo says, "No, trouble, I'm afraid. A few hedge knights wished to renege on an order and refused to pay for work already done, and when I explained to them that no refund would be forthcoming, they sought trouble. They found some, though. Good lad." And he thumbs over his shoulder towards Gendry, who you notice is actually standing there with a blacksmithing hammer still in his hand, like in his offhand as he's straightening up other stuff. He goes, "Nothing we couldn't handle, though."
Not appreciatively at the apprentice.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
He doesn't acknowledge it, except perhaps with a non-committal grunt at a distance. He's not big on making eye contact with patrons and such, as far as you've seen. Tobo Mott, meanwhile, looks past the pair of you to Oris, who is carrying great big bundles of armor over a shoulder or under his arm. And Tobo Mott lets out a sigh, and he goes, "This is the one you wanted armor for in a day and a half?"
Yes.
Oh, Adam came along also? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the coin. That makes sense. Tobo Mott lets out a sigh. He goes, We're already not likely to sleep tonight, but assembling the scale mail that you've given me for a man that size. You got any brothers, lad? And Oris gives him a look and kind of shakes his head. He goes, 6.5 feet tall and dark hair? You're sure you don't have any brothers? Hedge knights that might have busted up the finest shop on the Street of Steel. And Sir Vannon, you remember that 6.5 feet tall with dark hair sounds an awful lot like three some bitches who wailed on you in a, I was going to call it an alley, but it was kind of a space between tents. But yes, an alley.
A temporary alley.
Yes. But Oris hurriedly shakes his head. He goes, "No, I'm no kin. None here. None anywhere."
No, but I might know the ones you're talking about.
I shoot Vannon a look, like, what?
Tobomot gives you a look and he goes, Kettle Blacks?
Was this in the morning?
Indeed, they left a few minutes ago, if that.
Did one of them have a wounded arm?
Indeed, that's why they didn't want to buy their armor anymore.
Those are the bastards. Well, wait. Nope. Well, anyway. So...
They said the one with the broken arm would be no use in the melee, so 7 hells if they'll pay for a suit of armor they're not going to use this week. And he nods off to one side, and you see a big suit of plate mail. And by big, I mean sized for someone tall and broad-shouldered, like you remember those 3 were, Vannon. And he goes, so now I've got half the pay for a suit of plate. And they're promising they'd rather, what was it, Gendry? Burn the place down than pay for it? And Gendry snorts and shakes his head. He goes, we're used to fires here.
Perhaps we could come to some arrangement.
Yes. Might I propose then, since these blackguards are not getting their armor, and we need some armor for our statuesque companion, could we take that armor? Then you don't have to make yet another set.
Tobomot kind of looks from the armor over towards Oris. He goes, put those things down, lad. Straighten up. Shoulders up. Let me have a look. Bit bigger in the chest, and I could easier make alterations to that set than build him something new out of your scrap.
Gendry, get the breastplate stretcher.
And he goes, it's only half paid for, though. I'll still be taking 1,000 silvers for it, or I'm burning this place down myself.
How about 800?
And how about we bring those... You said they were the Kettle Blacks?
He spits on his own floor and nods. Indeed, it's Osney or Osgree or Osgrave or something stupid like that. There's 3 of them, and their father's a man-at-arms. The oldest boy claims to be a knight. The other 2 aren't. Just ruffians about town, and they take sellsword jobs through the Crown Lands.
I run my thumb along one of the wounds on my face. I have some business with them myself. Perhaps you'd be willing to cut a deal if we were willing to put a little bit of fear into them?
He kind of chuckles, and then he goes, I'm already giving you a suit of Tobomot mail for half price.
Fair enough, sir.
Because
And
you're taking it from them.
I'd never besmirch your good work or your reputation, sir. That being said, at least it'll bring a smile to your face.
Yeah. He doesn't look like he smiles much. Goes, well, you were already planning to pay me for a good suit of scale. The difference would be, say, 400 silver then.
Yeah,
Okay,
consider
so,
it done.
I don't even need to haggle in. Great.
That's more than reasonable.
Yeah, and out of character, that was the math that checked out. You were paying him 600 for a suit of scale mail, a suit of full plate that was already half paid for. You had to pay 1,000 of it. You already gave him 600 for scale instead. So yeah, 400 silver, and you will be square.
I had Oris written up as 600 stags for his armor.
So, in addition to a new suit of armor that will be described fully when you see Oris wearing it, you guys also potentially made an ally instead of an acquaintance, but who also have a name to apply to at least someone who accosted you. Kevin, looked like you had some.
Is my half plate ready?
Yeah, we'll say that you can pick that up because you didn't come fetch armor and then go traipsing in the woods to murder anyone yesterday. So yeah, they were able to work on your armor. Everyone else had to come and get their armor back and then like go do adventure-y stuff, and then that's where they go back. But,
Cool.
yeah, yours is ready to go. You can have that picked up just fine. Any other particular plans for Tobo Mott's shop? Because we are just kind of focused on the points of interest here. I'm not going to make you guys stand here while I put on a couple episodes of Forged in Fire or something.
I don't suppose you know anyone else who the Kettle Blacks might have crossed.
He shrugs his wiry, muscled shoulders. I don't pay much attention to the politics of hedge knights, I'm afraid. I just take their coin and trade them iron for it.
Well, Vannon, we can try and find what pavilion they're in. Take it to someone higher up.
I'm embarrassed to ask, and I would do nothing to shame the house that has done so much for me, but I would ask for recompense for them.
Well, that's all right. You don't need to do the asking. House Nymerian has been insulted, so an Nymerian can go and demand recompense.
My lord.
I agree.
All right then. We are going to call it a wrap here at Tobo Mott's shop. They are going to be making some alterations to that pilfered set of Kettle Black mail, but it will be ready at the same time everyone else's is ready, which is right when the plot demands it before you guys all need it for jousting. So, you've
Plot
got...
armor?
Yes, exactly. So you've got basically the rest of the day, and I'm going to save you a few rolls here. The Kettle Blacks don't have a pavilion set up at the pavilion grounds. You make your way through the pavilion and go looking for it. A quick ask anywhere, or honestly even just like a knowledge roll, would remind you after you remember anything about their garbage little house. It's a house of not even landed knights anymore. It's just kind of a sprawling mass of sellswords and hedge knights with no real meaningful claim to like nobility. But you do know that they've got a black kettle on a red field. And you go looking through the tourney grounds. There's no pavilion there, and the Master of Lists says that they didn't like requisition a spot on the grounds. Go ahead, Adam. What do we got?
Who are they sworn to?
No one, because they're just head knights. They are essentially up-jumped sellswords in that ugly stereotype of hedge knights way, but they actually are. You're able to ask around easily enough, particularly with your cousin Will, who's been dealing with hedge knights lately because he's been tracking down Kennedy Shanine. We're not going to roleplay out the whole conversation, but basically the eldest of the three brothers claims to have been knighted, and they're just kind of a bruiser squad. Everyone knows that the father is just kind of a crusty old man-at-arms that seems to have been rolling in some extra coin of late, but hasn't been bragging about being a sworn sword anywhere. So they seem to have just gotten an injection of silver and gold lately, but they're not knowingly sworn to anyone that anybody knows of. By all accounts, they seem to just keep doing their normal kind of sellsword work. And they do often 2 or 3 of them. Lately, not the father. It's been the sons instead. They'll show up and bash people at a melee, that sort of thing, and make some decent money. They're big dudes. Like, all 3 of them are of the sons. And the dad is stooping with age a bit, that sort of thing. So he doesn't necessarily do the fighting anymore. But they're all big dudes. well over 6 feet tall, long arms, all training, brawling all the time. But yeah, nobody knows who they're sworn to or where they would have gotten the money to be buying a set of full plate prior to a King's Landing
No.
tourney.
Probably robbing folks. Well, they must sleep and drink somewhere, so we'll find them. They don't scare me.
Yeah.
Well, they do really, but I'm going to pretend they don't scare me.
I'm so proud of you.
I'm overcompensating.
That's the best type of compensation. So, any other particular plans other than taking it easy and healing up for some of you prior to tonight's feast and opening kind of celebratory ceremonies?
Just more seeing what grist is on the rumor mill regarding us.
I'm gonna hire a girl to help us with our hair and dressing for tonight for the feast because we didn't bring one. And fancy dress feast stuff requires more than usually.
Lyle Brewer, the owner of the Green Tree and of the place across the street, is more than willing to rent you out a girl for whatever it is you need. And he does have one.
Calm down, Luke. Calm down.
I'm already aware of this.
He's got a
I've seen
subway
everything.
card. He's got 9 punches on his subway card. He knows
Yeah.
to do whatever you want. But he offers you the petite blonde girl that you recall
Ooh, she's good.
dancing, kind of stumbling around last night. She is not one that you have made an acquaintance of yet, Luke. You have seen her serving drinks at the house across the street. You have seen her working there, but not as a working girl. The distinction is appropriate. Like a cocktail waitress at a strip club is not a dancer at a strip club, that sort of thing. But he introduces you to her and says her name's Lyda. She used to work in some castle or something somewhere, and she can help you ladies look a bit less Dornish or more Dornish, or aren't you from Dorne, girl? Whatever. She'll do what you need.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me. Yes, Fannin.
This is actually minor retcon. So I went across the street to make sure that Lucaris didn't get in trouble while he was, playing Bangarang at full base. But since I wasn't planning on getting laid, is it possible that I was just, spreading the odd coin and looking for pleasant conversation and maybe asking the girls about the rumor mill? I mean, people do talk at the pillow, and I wasn't
Sure.
exactly busy.
That will work also with your attempt to learn things today. So what we're going to do, chat, give me a number from 1 to 6, and then another number from 1 to 6.
This could take a moment.
Shouldn't take too long. Damn it, chat, I want to include you in the fun.
Well, there is a delay in this stream,
Yeah, I know.
so
All right, then.
give it a little bit.
For the first one, I will roll it my damn self.
5 is up there.
Yep,
5 is one of the rolls.
I see one.
And 2.
2. All right. But first, I'm going to go with the initial roll that I made, which is that there's trouble brewing between that House Dannett and House Nymerian. You mark my words. Not the usual sort of trouble, mind, but maybe open war. And depending on what the king chooses to do after this attack and all, can't go attacking House Dannett's people and lands without repercussions, is that first rumor. The next roll, we had 5-2. Oh, I heard there was a crow down from Castle Black. Not to take part in the tournament, of course, but maybe just out to collect volunteers to take back to the wall. They circle the doings of honest men like crows looking to pick the meat off the bones of the dead, that lot. That's the only random rumor you get there. You do get a repeat of the rumor that you heard at the Great Stag several nights ago now, and this is one that Vannon hears, since he's not wearing House Nymerian stuff. It's just that, yeah, everybody's heard they killed 15 small folk on Danet lands, rode them down in their fields, left behind a bloody shield, and that's why Lord Adam knows just who to blame, and there's bad blood between them anyway, and that sort of thing.
Pass this along.
So, not much new, but it does seem to confirm that it was young Adam Danet himself. But you'll notice that they called him Lord, and that is a bit unusual, because last you heard, Lord Danet was his grandfather, who was of an age with Grandfather Makar. There is Grandfather Danet, whose sons died in Robert's rebellion, fighting for Robert. And then Adam, who was his grandson and heir. The sons died in the rebellion. Adam was it. He has a younger sister that's about 2 years younger than the rest of you, that you haven't heard much about lately. But that is the second time you've heard people refer to Adam Danet as Lord Adam, or the young Lord, or Lord Danet, or what have you. But it sounds like, at least to the people that are hearing these rumors, the rumors are coming straight from House Danet.
Which doesn't make it a rumor, it makes it slander and lies.
Seems like we'd probably go to the source then. And it sounds like he might have inherited.
Worse, can you imagine a better audience for him to gather than at the tourney?
Yeah, so we might want to head this off sooner rather than later. I mean, we don't need to go in hot. You know, there may have been a misunderstanding, and we should probably try and resolve things peacefully before we go aggressively, because you can't really do it the other way around.
Are we having this discussion as an entire group?
Well, I mean, I'm certainly putting that to the group once Vannon gives us the information.
This is kind of in the abstract middle-late afternoon, the day of the opening feast.
Very well then.
So you guys can just be having a few cool drinks at the Green Tree, back in a corner, you know, that sort of thing. So however many of you want to be there are there.
Unless you lot have us, you can tell me these are lies, or they come from him, or somebody manipulating him.
Oh, they're definitely lies. We are not
Could be.
responsible.
This did not happen.
I would assume you would have told me.
Oris drinks deep of a flagon of wine and says, "I didn't see nothing."
That sounds more
That's all right,
suspicious
Oris,
than
we
if you
know.
had.
I'm just
Keep in
saying.
mind.
I feel like I likely would have noticed if we rode the wrong way a bit and then killed 15 small folk. I also may have spoken up.
It's
What would hope? Just keep in mind, Adam may be being manipulated as well. He may not be the one starting this rumor.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, while it may seem to be coming from him, it may not be his idea.
Have we seen the Danet shield anywhere?
House Danet, you have heard that young Lord Adam is in the lists. You are able to check with the Knight of House Florent that has been pressed into service as the Master of the Lists. The Danets are here. They are in attendance, but they do not have tourney grounds. They did not set up a pavilion tent here. He's not sure where they're staying.
Let us talk to him
I
tonight.
mean, that probably means they'll be staying at an inn or something.
Yeah, it
Is
seems
there
likely.
any authority that we should approach? Perhaps to gain sanction to explore this slander?
The only authorities that matter to you would be your liege lord in Sunspear, the in charge of all Dorne, or King Robert Baratheon himself. Once again, it seems a little weird that you haven't been approached by either of those authorities yet, especially because you're right here in King's Landing, but you haven't been accosted by gold cloaks or summoned to the Red Keep to face the King's justice or anything like that. So it sounds like maybe the Danets haven't filed a formal charge, or I mean, with you being here kind of literally in spitting distance of the Red Keep, that's the authority you would go to, and that authority hasn't come to you.
Right.
Nobody's sure what that means. It's just a little weird. Erica, did you have something?
Yes, I believe we should probably send a raven to Grandfather. Let him know of these accusations that are being levied against us, and perhaps see if he has any insight or information he could share.
That sounds like a good idea. I mean, we don't necessarily even have to give these rumors the credibility of a response.
Right, but as head of the house, he definitely should know about this. These are serious, if pressed, the authorities could make a big deal about this.
And once they've made their statements, well, then we're caught on the back foot.
We'll send a raven between now and the beginning of the feast. And we will go into the feast with all of our manners.
Nervous and takes another deep drink.
Because now I am dreading what is going to happen there.
Well, I mean, as long as none of us fly off the handle at someone first, like something, then we should be okay.
All right then.
That was a little pointed.
Deep breath.
As long as that doesn't happen.
Wow, that's never gonna happen.
What are the odds of a bunch of Targaryens and Dornishmen getting mad about anything? So,
It's gonna fall to me to be the cool head, and that's a bad day.
I just, just hearkening back to a certain someone who mouthed off at a city watchman.
all right then. We are going to go ahead and call it there. This is going to be our kind of early bathroom break, because we are going to come back after this cut, and we are going to go straight to the feast in the Red Keep. So, everyone be ready to describe all your fancy grown-up clothes. So, let's do our usual break, and when we come back, everybody will be dressed much less comfortably, and we will kick things off in the Queen's Hall of the Red Keep in the capital of Westeros. Dun, dun, dun! Hey everybody, and welcome back to Westeros. I took our break there just a hair early, because remember we are going for 4 hours starting this session. So we didn't quite go to the 2-hour mark, because our next big affair is going to be the opening ceremonies and introductory feast there in the Red Keep. And I'd rather not take the break square in the middle of that. So instead, we're going to jump cut to one of the many kind of fancy courtyards in King's Landing, with everyone just kind of milling around, looking very pretty and very handsome, and most importantly, very, very wealthy, because that is what these sort of affairs are for. So you're able to travel armed through the city as normal, because your social status and your responsibility as knights is, in fact, to do so. But you do have to hand over weapons upon arrival, including things like Sunfire, the ancestral spear of the house. It's all taken care of very seriously by the Master-at-Arms and the captains of the guard. There is a member of the Kingsguard there overseeing things. Marin Trant, with his bushy black eyebrows and dark eyes peering out from under his helmet, just watching everybody as they're handing over weapons. But it goes smoothly and goes finely. And then it's time to mingle. So I'm going to kick things off with the youngest and smallest member of House Nymerian. What are your fancy party clothes?
Well,
and
I'm glad you asked me that.
If you want, you could also go over Oris's fancy party clothes again, because remember, you're the one that played Dress Up Oris. So,
I did indeed. Yeah, so Oris is in crimson and oxblood brocade velvet with like an ivory underneath and black lamb's wool and leather, so he's kind of in black and shades of red. And Adam has gone for the very dark maroon of House Nymerian with gold stitching, and kind of gold sashing. So he's kind of maroon and gold, like our banner.
all right. So that is the smallest, but perhaps fanciest, of House Nymerian's members, and then the looming largest outsideriest member of your little adventuring band, with young Oris Waters. How is our other bastard dressed up, Kevin? What has Sir Vannon done to look presentable, and what is his idea of presentable? What does he present?
Well, I've got a bit of status. Assuming that I had time to have some clothes made, altered, done up fancy-wise, primarily colors of black with burgundy trim and ash grays of various shades at different points to create a bit of dimension and depth. Along the arms, the burgundy stretches across the black like tree roots. And if there's any ornamentation, it would be a small, probably some simple stone of a singular raven perched upon one of those branches. He's got ideas for his coat of arms, and he's starting early.
Well, don't forget that coat of arms needs to be finalized before the tilt tomorrow, but you will have been able to get it painted up. But
He's having that made right now, but this is like a sneak preview.
Exactly. All right then. What about the only other male in the immediate familial group, Sir Lucaris? Did you ever find a shirt?
I did. You'd be surprised what you can find when you toss a few hundred silver stags. Lucaris is wearing what looks like some relatively new, fancy noble garb, mostly in a deep wine red with a silver embroidery. It's fancy, but it's not as fancy as maybe everyone else is dressed at. There's a comfort there, having been in the city a while. And the clothing looks like it's designed to breathe and let air flow through a little bit more than you might expect.
Right. You have had the chance already to make first impressions on a great many of the people in King's Landing. It's less of a big deal to you, when a lazy schmuck like me wears a suit, it's for a wedding or something. When a lawyer wears a suit, it's because he's going to work on Tuesday. So it's kind of thing.
Right.
You've been in Sunspear and King's Landing for most of your life by this point, so you're like, nah, whatever. All right, let's bounce it over to another NPC real quick, because slipping into the train of you as you mingle in the courtyard, this is still outdoors. It's not the feast yet, it's going to be the opening ceremony. Is a rather sinister but rather dashing figure, in basically just head to toe black and yellow. It's like a yellow doublet, black leather pants, and like a black kind of the leather vests that you often see on the show. Stamped on the black leather of the vest is a serpent that's winding up and over his shoulder. And that is your cousin, the Lord of House Will, the Will of Will, who is seemingly as comfortable in these clothes as he was in dark leathers prowling in the woods the night before to slit some cutthroats' throats. But he just kind of glides into the group of you effortlessly. And then let's take it to Lady Bela. How's your fancy garb for the evening?
So she's wearing something that she wears when she needs to dress up. This is not the only really nice thing she wears, but it's certainly the nicest of the clothes that she has, and it's a white and very breathable dress. It's over one shoulder and then kind of drapes down around her. It's a dark burgundy wine red, such as the wine or the color of our banner and the wines from our house, and it's adorned with a silver cinch around her waist with a silver sash that kind of goes across one shoulder as well, and she's wearing dragon earrings that are silver with red eyes, and she looks very comfortable and very easy moving, very graceful and agile. Oh, and her hair is braided in the back in a long ponytail.
Well, our setting doesn't have a Daenerys. We need this.
And that leaves the heir to the house, Lady Reyna.
I actually went to a seamstress or a tailor and had a dress made for this occasion. It is a style that's a little more King's Landing. Since Cersei has been queen, she has influenced the fashion of all of the noble people, especially the ladies. And so they have those long sleeves with the points, like she wears, where it gapes down and it comes down to to her knuckles, and it's in of course the dark wine red with samite is apparently a type of fabric where you have precious metals woven through. Normally it's gold, but I got mine done with silver. So I use that for the insets in the bodice because it's cut very actually low, but it has the inset to retain modesty. And the shoulders. Oh no! Yeah, the shoulder is that stiff collar that is almost off the shoulder. You've seen it on the show. I've only ever seen Cersei wear it. But it does bear the collarbones and the top of the chest. And her hair, her silvery blonde hair, has been braided very elegantly up, first up and then down, and it straights down over her shoulder. And then she has a silken cloth that she uses to either she can wear it over her head, like when she was outside it's over her head. When she goes inside she drops it down.
So some of you looking very Dornish, others of you looking very kind of classical King's Landing-ish. But all of you looking appropriately fancy, so that there's certainly no issue on your way in. And again, we'll do that slow-mo walk when we film this episode of our live-action show. It's gonna be that cool kid moment, walking down the hallway in high school, looking all dressed up for prom type of thing. And now you guys are in a courtyard full of, if you ask them, the creme de la creme of Westerosi society, who are you looking for? Is there anyone in particular that you're looking to mingle with?
Oh.
Well, you've kind of got this unstructured socializing time prior to the feast, and everyone's just kind of milling around waiting for the ceremonies to formally commence.
Yeah, well, there's a few people I'm probably looking for, maybe some to avoid, and then others to potentially earmark to converse with.
Looks like you're taking the initiative, so lay it on me, lady.
Okay.
Lady.
So pertinent to like our story, things that have happened so far, I'm definitely on the lookout for the Black Cauldrons. That's their name, right? This
Kettle Blacks.
Kettle Blacks. That's it. That was close.
They better not be here.
So looking out for them. Also looking out for the Danets. Probably don't really want to mingle with them right now because that's probably likely not to be a very good encounter, I would imagine. Gonna look out for any other Dornish houses, perhaps like the princesses. They would be interesting to go talk to. Also, we've heard about the rumors of that Tyrion Lannister, the dwarf, just
The imp.
the imp. Be interested to see if he's here. Maybe find the dragons or the Kingslayer. He would be cool to go talk to. So yeah, those are the kinds of things I'm looking out for.
All right, we are going to work our way down that list in opposite order.
Okay.
You do see the Kingslayer. He is every inch a statuesque golden lion. He is garbed in the gold enameled white armor of the Kingsguard. His has a bit more gold on it than some of the other Kingsguard you've seen. But his cloak is somehow every bit as white. He is actually apparently at work this evening. He is staying close to the royal family, and it is a sea of gold and arrogance as you glance in his direction. He's standing there fairly casually with one hand on his sword hilt, which is threat enough to anyone that gets within about 30 yards. Like, he's not one of the Kingsguard that stands at attention and makes a big show of looking alert. He just casually reminds the world that he has a sword within arm's reach and you're dead. So he's standing there looking comparatively casual to the other white cloaks that are on display stationed around the room or around the courtyard. You don't see the king, but the queen is quite near him, laughing half-heartedly behind a fan, in that the fan is half-heartedly covering her laughter at something clever and cruel that he likely just said. You do not see the imp Tyrion Lannister in attendance. He may be taking advantage of the fact that all the other lords and ladies are in the Red Keep, so all the best brothels are currently open. If the rumors you've heard are true. So that takes care of the Lannisters. Dornish folk in attendance. You do not see your cousin or cousins from Sunspear and House Nimros Martell themselves. And in fact, the only other Dornishmen that you notice are from House Ironwood.
Oh, that was the other ones. I wanted to know if they were there and not to approach them for similar fear that hostilities might break out.
Yes, the only other Dornishmen that you spot are wearing fine clothes, but also with the blazoned sigil of that closed portcullis of House Ironwood. Both of the sons are here. Both Cletus Ironwood and the looming and bald-headed Archibald Ironwood.
His name really is Cletus.
His name is Cletus. It's a legitimate name.
That's
and
too
they're
bad.
actually standing rather near young Adam Dannett. And he is talking with them with his angry eyebrows on.
Oh, he's telling us.
And he's kind of glaring around. He looks kind of visibly distressed, almost to the point of like illness. And that he looks like he's kind of worked himself into being pale. And he's talking angrily and kind of using his hands. And all three of them are pointedly not looking at you guys. Like they're making a big deal of, like they're, if they were randomly looking around the room, they would have seen you, or around the courtyard, they would have seen you. As it is, you know that they know where you are, and they are pointedly not looking at you. But yeah, they're all kind of together in one place. So that, I believe, covered your list, right?
It
You're
did.
looking for Dornish folk, Danet in particular, and then some Lannisters. Who else? The Kettle Blacks you do not see. And from what you hear, they would kind of stand out. But yeah, they don't seem, you don't see them just yet. Who else wants to look for someone in particular?
Is there anyone here from House Manderley?
There are not. You don't see really hardly any Northmen. You have been drilling for the last several years in picking up on the northern sigils and houses and who is currently lord of so-and-so and all that. That was part of why you were squiring up there. There are certainly no Manderleys. You do see a rather lanky and kind of awkward-looking young man that you recognize as a member of House Woods. And you guys might remember that part of why your new allies in House Lugus, why they are attending, was because Marita was newly engaged to a young man of House Woods. The only other Northman that you actually see is... Excuse me, we're a little hoarse from Overwatch League yesterday. The only other Northman that you actually see is a North woman. She's a rather stockily built, broad-shouldered young lady about your age. About the aggregate age of the group, 20 or close to it. Who's got her hair a little too wild and shaggy for the average man in King's Landing, much less for a woman in King's Landing. And she looks fairly awkward and uncomfortable, not least of which because she's wearing kind of northern garb still, and that she's got like a fur-lined cloak on that you think might just be her good cloak type of thing, but she is definitely not dressed for the weather in King's Landing. But you do recognize the bear of House Mormont on like a patch on her tunic, because she's not in, I mean, she's in a tunic and trousers and stuff. She's not wearing a gown and that sort of thing. So those are the only North folk that you see. Lucaris, who are you looking for?
I'm looking for Lord Adam.
Yes, he is Lord Adam Danet.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, he is standing over there with the Ironwoods.
I'm going to slowly walk over there.
Oh my gosh. I might as well get this over with, right?
As you approach, he turns and is staring daggers at you, and you see the Ironwoods kind of turn and flank him, a protective half step in front of him, and they give you a shake of their head. You are high enough status to know that this is a bad idea.
Okay, I'll kind of look at him for a moment, then I'll step away.
That's not to say that the GM is saying you absolutely cannot do it, just that you are high enough status and familiar enough with the King's Landing to know that it would.
Well, I wanted to approach in a friendly manner, and they look like that's not an option.
Yes.
I'm not picking a fight.
Yeah.
I don't have my sword.
Yeah. They look to clearly be kind of warding you away right now. But you did force them to acknowledge that you exist, and that was a step up from the rest of House Nymerian so far. So let's go to the other gentleman, or rather the other sir, in your little group. What is Sir Vannon Rivers scanning the crowd for?
Did you see my thing in Discord?
I did, but you still get to say what you're looking for.
I'm keeping an eye open for my blood relations.
They are easy to spot, and they don't look terribly interested in approaching you themselves. But that's part of the reason that a bastard looks for his family, to see what they want from him right now. But yes, your father is in attendance, and you see him encircled by a handful of other Riverlanders, because, of course, they are among the most prominent of Riverland houses. But yeah, you've got, excuse me, not least of which there's a couple Freys hanging out over there. And also, you recognize them from growing up, though it's been a while. But Sir Brendan Blackwood is also here.
If he's anywhere other than with the family, I might happen to be near him at that time.
Okay, Sir Brendan, of course, is your eldest brother and heir to House Blackwood. It's not an aggressively glaring type of thing like the Ironwoods and the Danets were up to, but they're also kind of pointedly not looking at you just yet. Maybe they just rather mingle with other proper highborn this early in the feast. It looks like he's almost holding court. Your father isn't a Tully, of course, but the Blackwoods are among the powerhouses of the Riverlands, and it may just not be appropriate for them to approach you, certainly not this early, at least. But yeah, you unfortunately don't get a companionable nod from across the room or that sort of thing. But maybe over time and with the drink flowing, they will warm to you and you will get a companionable nod after several hours of being awkwardly ignored.
Grit my teeth and turn back to my cups.
Yes, that is that. Anyone else in particular you were looking out for? I was assuming the Kettle Blacks. You also don't see them, despite knowing better what to look for. But looked like Erica had her hand up again.
Yeah, so at this point, not finding really anyone that I might have wanted to talk to, but not wanting to, like, I don't want to just hang out amongst our group. So are the Lucases here yet? Because I will go and mingle with them.
You do spot them, but let Lady Reyna do her look around, and we'll handle that first kind of slow-mo where the camera goes to one person's face and then goes to what they're looking for in the crowd. Like, let's finish that group shot first, and then we'll double back to the Luca.
I thought he was going to hold the button for me.
Nope.
I am looking for... I'm basically just have a checklist. I'm going, like, from left to right over the room, and I'm organizing them in my head in numerical order of who is most important and who do I least want to interact with.
Okay, quick answering a text question. You are not sure exactly who this Mormont woman is, or rather Adam isn't sure. You know that the Lady of Bear Island has 2, maybe 3 daughters. You can't recall. House Mormont isn't particularly powerful. They're kind of the opposites of the Manderleys, both geographically and in outlook and civility. So you suspect it's one of her daughters. It would kind of have to be wearing that, but you're not sure just who it is. To answer the Lady Reyna's scan of what you see, the ones that are the most powerful and also the ones that you the least want to talk to are currently the same, and that would be Cersei Lannister, and the knot of her and Jaime, the Kingslayer. They are attended to by a pair of squires that look like they could be secondhand clones of Jamie. They're just very blonde, very pretty young men that are refilling the queen's cup and making a big point of laughing after about one comment in three that either the Kingslayer or the queen makes, and that sort of thing. The king is not yet visible, and you also don't see the king's hand just yet. Again, this is still kind of an opening ceremony that hasn't quite kicked off yet, so you don't see the king's hand. You don't see Stannis Baratheon, the master of ships. He's somewhere in the city, but this is a party, so he might not show up. So that's where we're at there. We can go to House Lucas or we can go to Ash. Is it about House Lucas, Ash, or is it something else?
No, I was going to ask about House Lucas, but the other kind of big names I was going to ask about attendance are Renly or the princess here yet?
They are not. You have heard that Renly might not be attending, and a few people have joked that it's because Sir Loras isn't here. But you have heard that Renly was visiting in the Reach, so he might not be here at all. Princess Marcella, Prince Joffrey, and Prince Tommen, you don't see any of them in attendance just yet. So let's double back to House Lugas. You may recall that their house sigil is a silver chalice inlaid with emeralds on a black field. And as is often the case in Westeros, the hint is to play Where's Waldo looking for color combinations. And you do see the three of them. The Lady Marita seems to be handling the black all on her own. But you recall she is technically probably still in mourning for her second husband's death. But she is wearing almost entirely black. Her one kind of nod to the party is that there is a perhaps troubling amount of cleavage on display for a widow's mourning clothes, and that display is kind of supplemented, or the eye is drawn to it, by a silver chain with a large emerald on it that is swaying rather distractingly between her Lugas tracts of land. But she's wearing just black. Also quite dark is Orton Lugas, but his is just kind of a subdued black and silver, and he's kind of got like a dark green piping here and there, and that sort of kind of green trim. But it's a fairly, I don't want to say sparse or Spartan, because it is nobleman's garb, and it's probably like the best he could get done on a Lugas budget. But House Lugas's budget isn't generally aimed towards fine clothes. They're kind of a rowdy Stormlands house. But his is kind of fancy. It's well crafted, but it's fairly simple work. It's not what you would expect on like a fancy full-time courtier, here in the capital. Nathan, meanwhile, is in bolder colors, wearing the Orton silver and green, kind of out to catch the eye. A bit bolder, a bit less dour, certainly less grim than either his bookish, introspective brother or his nominally grieving widow of a sister. And you actually see them making their way through the crowd towards Sir Langley Woods, the Northman that you spotted before, who's otherwise standing by himself, looking fairly uncomfortable.
Is Sir Langley? Is Sir Langley the one who was mentioned in the betrothal?
Yes. You'd heard that she was betrothed to a Sir Langley Woods. There is a Woods standing alone that they are approaching. It better be him instead of his brother or something. There could be trouble. But yeah, so it looks like you are assuming that would be Sir Langley Woods that they are moving to approach and kind of mingle with.
I want to observe that. So we will cruise in that general direction, but but not directly, kind of off to the side. You know, we're just strolling casually. It's a party.
Okay, you are able to kind of like travel in their wake through the crowd, you know, rather than lasering directly forward them as a group. The Will of Will seems to have drifted away from the lot of you somewhere. He's off to do his own mingling and or drinking. Oris follows in your wake, looking more uncomfortable than the time he got stabbed or hit with an axe. But he's just kind of following along, looking very nervous, and careful not to like bump into anyone or step on anyone's toes, literally or figuratively. But he certainly doesn't seem to be showing any initiative here at the just following along.
Adam will stick close to Oris, and I know, like, Adam will know he can't really do anything about the discomfort, but he will try to, you know, at least keep Oris right, etiquette-wise, and be encouraging and try and distract him from his discomfort.
Sure, and like I say, he's not likely to create any enormous faux pas, because it looks like he's just trying desperately to do nothing. So he's just like, oh, they're walking, I'll walk with them, you know, and not like taking point himself or anything like that. But he gives you a little bit of a nod and a very nervous smile. And you are able to get within polite listening distance of the trio of Lugai as they approach the lanky, kind of gawky, prominent Adam's apple, prominent nose. Langley Woods has kind of just a bristle of like straw-like hair that is just kind of there. It's just kind of a mop of hair that looks like he's tried to comb it and it has refused. But he just looks awkward and out of place, which is what you would all expect from Northmen in King's Landing. Only he's also not like daunting and imposing like you would hope for a Northman from King's Landing. He's no Clegane Stark or anything like that. But he manages a bow as his lady, his betrothed, approaches, and with a slight nudge from Orton, who has his hand at like the small of his sister's back and gives her a little bit of a shove. Orton kind of sends Marita over his way, and they exchange pleasantries. She looks as awkward about it as he does, but in a much more kind of disinterested way. Remember, this is basically her third time she's being married to somebody she's not particularly into, and she looks a little kind of everywhere but at him. She's scanning the crowd with almost an appraising gaze, like you saw on Cersei Lannister. That same kind of just scoping out everyone's outfits and perhaps idly wishing she could wear something more colorful, you suspect. There's a bit of resentment on her face as she's stuck in, widow's black at this, event here in the capital. But it's not a big dramatic thing. They don't go running to one another and embrace, but she also doesn't, throw wine in her face and slap him or anything like that. It's just kind of two people being awkward and distant at one another. You notice that Nathan is also scanning the crowd and then leaning over towards his brother and saying something probably awful in his brother's ear and kind of elbowing him in the ribs. So he's probably talking about the other, daring low-cut gowns on display. And you notice that Orton is just kind of ignoring him and occasionally rolling his eyes. He looks like he's feeling better. He's back to form of sighing exasperatedly at his jock bro of a brother. Looks like Lucases are just gonna Lucas.
I'd like to approach the couple, give them a respectful bow and say, Sir Langley, my lady, allow me to congratulate you on your betrothal.
Oh, thank you. Who are you? He blushes, and it's really bright against his like Northman pale skin. And he looks kind of awkwardly nervous around, like, am I supposed to know who this is? Oh my god, is this Joffrey? Like he looks like he's a heartbeat away from a panic. Yeah.
Adam Nymerian, I am a friend of Orton.
Nymerians, you're Dornish, and they're not.
It's almost yes, it's almost like Dornish and Westerosi can be friends.
Almost.
You're funny.
What a very special episode.
Thank you, young lord. And he looks kind of panically past you, and he's pretty tall and kind of gawky and lanky, and he looks effortlessly over and past you. And he goes, I don't know any of you. And he looks like near panic again. Like, oh God, are they Joffreys? Like he's hanging by a thread in this highborn company.
Well, that's quite all right. Would you like to come share a drink with us?
He clearly gives Marita a look, like before he's like, can I go get a drink? And she kind of airily waves him off. I guess, of course, perhaps it will aid your complexion, dear. As you will. And he then looks to you and kind of raises his eyebrows, like, I don't know where to go get a drink. I hope you do.
Well, yes, I can show you. Yes, let's go on. You can meet my sisters and brother, and I actually squired in the north.
I didn't. We don't really squire, mostly. Where did you go in the north to squire?
Oh, White Harbor.
Oh, yes, the northern southerners. I
suppose
they're still reach folk deep down, but I suppose that still makes them northerners to you. But yeah, I don't really have a proper squire myself, and never really squired. But and then he looks at the lot of you, because by then you guys are over there.
Yeah.
You were all close. He goes, oh, hello, sirs and ladies.
Well,
I don't speak Roinar.
Well, we all speak Westerosi. It's fine. These are my sisters, Lady Rhaena, Lady Baela, my brother Sir Lucaris, and Sir Vannon Rivers.
Sir?
He kind of bobs his head to each of you in turn, not sure if he's supposed to completely bow, so instead he just kind of hunches his shoulders and bobs his head. He looks almost vulture-ish, and you get the feeling he might stoop a lot to try and not look so tall. He looks the sort that's more likely to try not to be seen than the sort of tall person that shows off how tall they are. You know what I mean? So he kind of does this little like awkward, bird on land head bob at each of you in turn. He says, I'm Langley Woods. Sir Langley, they keep calling me. I haven't gone to a sept or anything, or been anointed by your southern gods, but I hope that's all right.
Ah, yes.
Any night can make a night.
I haven't been knighted. They just keep calling me sir because I'm the heir to a house, I think. I don't understand all of it, but it felt rude to correct them.
Well, things are different in the north.
So, are you expected to tilt?
To joust. No. I haven't got the proper training to fight from horseback that way. No, it's the melee for us northern folk. And he kind of tries to straighten up and look northern and imposing. he does look like he'd have pretty good reach, at least.
So, you know this lady over here?
I don't know very many ladies here at all. And
There was an obviously northern lady right there.
he looks over there. He goes, that's one of Mormont's cubs. I don't know her.
All right then, but you came here independently?
Yes. I traveled the roads myself. We don't do everything together.
But I heard there was
Luke is
some
laughing.
trouble on the roads. Were you quite safe traveling alone?
Well, I made it here. So
Clearly,
I
he was
hope
very
so.
nice here.
What sort of trouble? He kind of looks around nervously for a second, like some fucking bandits might jump out, like all of a sudden now, like he's past due.
The roads from where you come from must have been better. Have a drink.
Oh yes, quite right. Thank you. This wine is sweeter than I'm used to at home, but it's quite nice. Thank you.
Oh, is this your first time in King's Landing?
Oh, it's my first time in a city.
It's my first time here as well, though not first time in the city.
There are a lot of people in the South, and a lot of people in cities. So there are a lot of people in this city in the South.
That is true.
And even as he says that, he just looks around like just the courtyard of a couple hundred noblemen, like, holy crap, this is a lot of people. Like, never mind that there's, 500,000 or more living in the actual city. Like, he's looking around like just the courtyard is a daunting population to him. House Woods is not a large or prominent house, and they are named that because they're in the middle of some of the woods, even for Northmen. So yeah.
So is your wedding going to be here?
He actually goes pale at that. Like, just thinking about the wedding is itself so very daunting. Oh, I hope not. So many people. No. We'll be taking Marita home with me, and we'll be saying our vows before a heartswood tree, like northern folk, not proper folk, northern folk.
Well, I'm sure that sounds lovely.
He kind of gives a wistful and nervous sigh. Says, "I hope she likes it."
Oh. Marita's gonna eat him up. And chew him up and then spit out the pieces. And then chomp on.
Have you ever started a conversation and immediately regretted it?
No, but I've seen it happen.
Yeah, if you were to ask that in character, Sir Langley would be like, all of them. He just looks nervous and out of place, which is fair because he is out of place and should be nervous about it. That said, before you lot can make him outright faint, you hear a trumpet-esque fanfare and the blaring of horns, and then a collective gasp and the thunder of hooves. And as everyone turns, what the hell is going on, King Robert comes charging into the courtyard, waving a sword overhead, riding on maybe the biggest warhorse you've ever seen. It's this huge blood bay that looks for a second like it's wearing like silver dragon scales. And as he like makes his way around the edge of the courtyard, roaring in a way that you feel might challenge a dragon, it gets near enough to you that you can see that it is a scale mail made of silver stags. That is the barding on this monstrous destrier. So Robert Baratheon just roars and laughs and rides a lap of the courtyard on top of this nigh war elephant draped in silver coins. And then in his wake, trotting much more awkwardly atop a very, very fine courser that's kind of a steely, cloudy gray with white, I think it's socks that they call it, that's like near the hooves. So kind of white up, mid-leg, and then a kind of mottled gray. A little, and certainly less comfortably and confidently than King Robert. But there's golden-haired Joffrey Baratheon digging his spurs in and just trying to get this thing to fly. And then behind them, going at like a walk, sitting side saddle atop a very fine golden desert sandy hued sand steed, and walking, certainly compared to the other two, sitting side saddle, is young Princess Myrcella, and she's being led by a 6.5 foot tall giant wearing black and red that Sir Vannon recognizes as one of the Kettle Blacks. But he is holding the reins and kind of guiding her horse. And then after the storm of hooves, King Robert's thunderous laugh echoes through the courtyards. A fine steed, and a fucking shame to give it away, but let none doubt the generosity of the Iron Throne. So, someone help me off the damn thing. Sell me, get over here. There we go. And there's a small storm of activity, and the Kettle Black vanishes to be joined by a pair of other Kettle Blacks that are standing 15 or 20 feet away from the rest of the now assembled royal family, as King Robert, after 2 tries, is able to get his leg up and over the back of the horse, and he stays standing on a little raised platform that he climbs down onto. So he's kind of up on a stage above everyone else, and he holds out his huge hands and just effortlessly picks up the Princess Myrcella, and holds her up like most humans would hold like a baby, like she's just sitting in the crook of his arm and waving her little 9 or 10-year-old hand at the crowd, who are roaring and waving back and that sort of thing. Joffrey rides an extra lap on his courser, just leaning low over it and wailing on it with both sides with like a riding crop, and digging his heels in. Sir Barristan Selmy, after King Robert climbs down, he sidesteps about 2 paces and just holds up a hand, and the courser like skids to a stop in front of him. And Sir Barristan, you can tell, did not blink, but he just stops the horse and the rider with a look, and doesn't say a word or anything, just stops, takes the reins. Joffrey clambers off, and looming as large as the Kettle Blacks, you see the Hound, Sandor Clegane, the sworn sword and personal bodyguard of Prince Joffrey, kind of looming over near the Kettle Blacks, splitting off from them and a little closer to the royal family. And it looks like the opening ceremonies have begun. Initial reactions, go!
Well, that's suddenly something.
Armor made out of money.
Right? Clapping and smiling and waving like everybody else. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Lucaris will get the proper nod and show of respect, but not stand out in the other way.
All right.
We'll do our best work in the tourney.
So after the applause and the cheering, the laughter, and all that die down, Joffrey, his handsome face is kind of pinched and sour because somebody stopped him from hurting a horse. But he stomps his way over to his mother's side and kind of poses princely near her. Jaime has drifted away from Cersei to kind of flank the royal family on the other side from Sir Barristan the Bold, and all that. And then, Robert gives everyone another kind of moment to wave and all that. And then the Princess Marcella lets out like a girlish giggle and kind of uses his arm as like a little swing as he kind of reaches out and lets her down. She kind of clambers down him like a tree in a very kind of girlish, happy, playful way. And then Cersei gives her a look and she kind of straightens out her face and looks princessly and makes her way over to where her mother is standing. And young Tommen has appeared by then as well, escorted by another one of the white cloaks of the Kingsguard. And the royal family is mostly all standing together with the king, Robert Baratheon, up on this small, fine wooden platform, and it must be sturdily built. And he goes, "Welcome to my only daughter's tourney. With our arrival and a look at the rewards that are up on display, let's toast first and then talk prizes in a moment." And there's a roaring laughter and everybody raises their cups. Nathan Lucas lets out like a classic rock stadium woo echoing near you. And one of those blonde squires scurries up and hurriedly gives King Robert a goblet that he raises. And then he goes, "In honor of Marcella's name day, the winner of the joust, one of you lucky bastards, will receive this horse from the stables of House Tyrell itself. There's Destrier, fine beast, breathed fire as much as any Targaryen steed ever did. And you'll get that barding and 500 gold dragons in finely tooled saddlebags." Everybody roars and cheers. And he goes, "The winner of the squire's tourney." And he turns and he points to the courser that Joffrey was on. Says, "Will receive this warhorse from the stables of House Redwine, complete with its own barding." You notice that barding is gleaming awful silver also. Looks like another coat of silver scale. He goes, "And saddlebags with 50 gold dragons. Some bold lad out there will take that prize." Everybody cheers, everybody claps. And then he gestures distractedly off his little stage, and you see John Aaron, the hand of the king, kind of shake his head and sigh, and he holds up a very fine-looking bow that's made of a strange material. And then Robert bellows anew, "Some lucky archer will take home this bow of dragon bone, a gift from a prince of the Summer Isles, and 35 gold dragons also let's say, 35. That sounds fine. And then he goes, what else? Oh, yes, Princess Marcella's horse. And he gestures towards that golden-hued sand steed. From the stables of House Dane, a gift from the young Lord Edric himself. A sand steed and 35 gold dragons. Also to the finest rider in the horsemanship contest. So some lucky boy will get that fine thing. And and the melee. The winning team will receive 77 gold dragons. And he turns and he glares at the older John Aaron, the hand of the king. He goes, 77 gold dragons each. Honor the 7 that way, you fucks.
That is big dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So the crowd goes fairly ballistic. The way wealth is measured in this RPG, these are really, really pretty generous prizes. With some of the weird numbers that were thrown around in the books in the show, for tourney prizes, it's not. But those numbers were absurd. Like, he gave away 10,000 gold dragons to the winner of the archery thing. That's just not going to happen. Sorry. But those of you that just got done making characters and got your wealth basically doubled by a royal boon, you know that this is some real money. So it takes a while for this courtyard of people, every one of whom is picturing themselves or some relation taking home every single prize. And in a meta-narrative sense, this is the result of the royal boon going to House Baratheon last week. They're sowing off the wealth of House Baratheon by giving it away, because that's how Robert Baratheon works. As the crowd starts to die down, and everybody's like just eyeing these wonderful mounts, and Sir Vannon, you can tell, even with the barding that they're wearing, to clarify, the sand steed, of course, isn't wearing barding, but it is wearing like a padded, the fanciful quilt stuff of House Baratheon. But even without getting a good look at these horses in their entirety, you can tell that these are the equivalent of like castle forged steeds, one and all. So they are very, very fine examples of horse flesh. And also each one of them is literally, two of the three is also wearing a coat made of silver coins. And covered
Look at that horse.
full of gold. So, let none doubt the largesse and the responsibility with coin. Your liege lord, Robert Baratheon. As soon as the roaring of the crowd dies down, Robert almost knocks himself off his little pedestal with a huge wave of one huge arm, and he goes, "Let's get inside and do some eating!" And again, it's like a battlefield charge voice. You can hear that exact same tone as like somebody was taking a battering ram to somebody's castle wall, or like a castle gate. Like, he probably would say the exact same thing in the exact same tone. So his voice just echoes and rings in this courtyard. He is every bit as larger than life than you would expect. And he doesn't seem to shrink much as he somewhat awkwardly steps down off his little platform pedestal. You can see he's still well over 6 feet tall. And he's still a big dude. He has certainly gone to seed, but he is just large. He is very, very loud, even compared to the other very loud people you have met lately. And you could certainly see, or rather hear in your mind's eye, hearing that same roar as he was coming at your second cousin or so Rhaegar with that hammer at the trident. And you're like, yeah, like that would suck. I would not want him yelling orders to an army we oppose. And you kind of can't help but think some of that, just from the size and the energy of that man. But we're gonna go to another kind of jump cut and get into the feast itself, because this is another thing that's pretty formalized and structured, in that the seating at these feasts is not an accident. Unfortunately, because people tend to be seated by kind of realm, in what is supposed to be an effort to cut down on conflict.
Oh no.
You guys are not seated right next to House Dannet and House Ironwood. In what is kind of a break from protocol, you have instead been moved farther down the table. And House Dannet and their patrons, House Ironwood, because remember the Dannets were taken from you as a banner house and given to House Ironwood. So nominally, Adam Dannet kind of reports to the Ironwoods, and then through them, but they are seated to Robert, closer to him than the other Crownlanders and Stormlanders. In an effort to put distance between them, you suspect. You are near the Northmen, and in a savvy move, it's Stormlanders and then Northmen. So Langley Woods is sitting near you, and the Lucases near him, though you can't help but notice that Merida maneuvered at the last moment to not actually be seated next to her betrothed. She is instead looking at some other handsome Stormlord, other Stormlander nearby, and engaging in all sorts of courtly gossip and stuff. But she managed to put her brothers between her and her betrothed. And you think you heard her say something specifically to Orton, like, you arranged it, you sit by him. Type of just a little bit of waspishness, just a little bit of salt. But you're basically at the end of the table. Now, it's still a table of high honor. You are still at the main table as the status of your house permits, because the hall is broken into multiple feasting tables, because there are hundreds of people here. So you're arranged kind of in tiers by status, and within each tier, you tend to be arranged by region to cut down on squabbling and stabbings at the table. So you are still at the kind of premier table, not with the royal family, but with like the center table that abuts up to their table. And you do now see the leaner, kind of comparatively wolfish looking Stannis Baratheon, and his wife, the Lady Selyse Florent. You remember that a Florent is the master of the lists, and this is probably how he got the job. You all have high enough status and education roles. You also remember another rather salacious link between House Baratheon and House Florent, and that is that the one recognized bastard of King Robert is young Edric Storm, who was begotten upon a Florent woman. So they're linked a couple ways, by marriage and by birth. The sickly daughter of Lord Stannis of Dragonstone, ancestral seat of your kin, their daughter is not here. You've heard for years that she is ailing. You might toast to it, depending on your feelings towards the Baratheon usurpers who take Dragonstone. But she's not here, but Stannis and his lady wife are. The Hand of the King, Jon Arryn, who is old, but is moving well despite his age, is joined by his wife and his rather sickly son. And you can't help but notice especially because at one point you have to toss an elbow into Oris's ribs. That the wife of John Aaron, formerly a Tully, is actually nursing her like 8-year-old up there at the feast table. And Oris's eyes are like wide like saucers for a moment. And then he goes, what kind of feast is this?
Oris,
And he looks like mortified.
rude.
I'm rude? What the? She's got her fucking teeth out.
It's a feast for all.
And it would be impolite to look at them.
The kid's half my age. Oh, you castle folk. Weird
Yes.
as hell.
Hey, don't blame this on castle folk, okay? Like, I think it's weird too, but let's not
So,
bring trouble on ourselves.
if he's half your age, would you need both tits?
You always manage to
I
take
try
down.
not
I laugh and cover my mouth.
It's a
This
question.
is how I handle this stuff.
It's a question for the maesters, my lord.
Oris just goes for the wine. He just takes a deep
You know what?
drink.
I think
And then
that's a
point-
new record, Luke. That's 5 minutes for you to drag it into the gutter.
No, I'll have to beat it next time.
So yeah, Oris is now apparently out of the fear of drawing the wrong sorts of eyes. He is focused entirely on drink because nobody's brought out the food yet. But before terribly long, that changes and the feast commences. Now, you all have been to feasts before, but you haven't quite been to a feast like this one. Partially because the feasts in Sunspear, which are the otherwise finest feasts you've ever been to, have just very different menus. They're still quite grand, but there you're getting proper Dornish fare with dragon peppers and actual flavor. Here you're getting that bland Northman food, but it is still undeniably fine. King Robert is, at a glance, a gentleman that enjoys sharing his wealth, and a gentleman that also likes fine food and drink. And all of that is on display here. There are great crusty loaves of bread with big chunks of salt kind of baked into the crust and still kind of gleaming and shining. And that's the very first course in a symbolic nod to the, bread and salt. But there's great big crocks of fine salted butter and huge wheels of a very strong yellow cheese that you can kind of carve off and layer with the bread. And this bread is like steaming, still piping hot as you tear it open. We're talking like Cheddar Bay biscuits at Long John Silver's.
Long John Silver's.
At
Red Lobster.
Red Lobster levels of yumminess here, and that's just getting the formality of bread and salt out of the way. Next up is a very filling soup that to you is grotesquely underspiced, but it's still hearty and very warm, full of leeks and other roots, other root vegetables, and there's great big chunks of ham floating in it, and it's a good thick meaty broth that is just quite tasty. And towards the bottom of each bowl is good hearty barley kind of mixed in and giving the whole thing some body. After that, your palates are cleansed like fine King's Landing ladies with a fresh salad of an assorted greens with a few dried fruits that have apparently been soaked in honey first. So it's like little honeyed like raisins and that sort of thing. And very, very finely shaved cheese mixed in, just dripping with a king's ransom of oil and vinegar that's there for leftover for you to sop that fine bread in after you finish your cheese. You've got to layer it with extra carbs. There are dainty little poached quail eggs in a thick, creamy sauce, rich with dill, which is a flavor you don't get a lot of in Dorne. It's its own kind of herbal, fluorescent note that's different than what you're used to. But every egg is like amazingly, perfectly dainty. Oris is eating everything like 3 heartbeats after everyone else. Like he watches how it's eaten and then wolfs it down. And with the egg, it's just like he looks extra nervous for a moment there. But then come nice, hot, flaky crusted meat pies full of pigeon and eel in a rich, buttery gravy. And they're just perfectly folded and crimped all round the edges. Each one looks perfect golden, and it's just like this is mass production on a pretty fine scale. And then start getting actual entrees. So huge chunks of roast beef with a thick, like a half-inch thick crust all around the edge of the beef of garlic and other herbs, and then root vegetables, good carrots and stuff, cooked in the juices, and it's a platter for each kind of foursome of people. They get this big silver platter with, this huge chunk of aurochs, and all this garlic and herbs and crusted peppers. But just before everyone is finished with that one, this army of pages and serving folks bring out the first of the desserts, once again crisply cleansing your palate with fine little miniature fruit tarts that aren't, the smallest of them aren't much larger than a silver stag. So they bring out assortments of itty-bitty tiny ones that are just tiny little fruit tarts, rich with berries and strawberries that have been sweetened and jammed up, and then fine little iced lemon cakes, all in the shape of Baratheon stag heads, and then sweet goblets full of honeyed fruit ices or honeyed cold cream. It's just cold and super icy and refreshing, and of course, with every single course, a small army of servant folk refilling the ale and wine of your choice to wash it all down. Welcome to King's Landing.
Refill it! Refill my flagon of chuckles!
I especially like the ices. We don't get those.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, winter is coming.
But not yet.
Winter is coming to my mouth.
That's what, nothing. So, Oris is hovering protectively over each plate. As somebody comes by to take it, he scarfs the last of it off first because he's literally never been anywhere like this. Remember, it came out on the road on the way up here. He had never been in a keep before visiting you all at Wyvern's Rest. Hedge Knights don't get to come to this sort of thing. Even going to tourneys and stuff, the lowborn Hedge Knight and that lowborn Hedge Knight's lowborn squire, they eat outside at stuff like this. And he seems determined to eat all of it because he does not expect to ever see it again. And he is not sipping and savoring the fine wines. They do make a note. With each course, you get a different wine. They rotate through the wines with each one. And you do get some Arbor Gold. You get a sweet red brought by House Tyrell. The servers don't seem to recognize you, but they do mention with the dessert courses comes a fine sweet red from the hills of Dorne and House Nymerian. So it would seem that Grandfather sent an abundance ahead somehow quickly enough. So you do get a taste of home. You've certainly never had it with this sort of dessert before, but it is a fine pairing.
May I recommend we stand and toast the king with our wine?
Yes.
As Lady
Very
Reyna
well.
returns, she would no doubt want to lead such a toast. Sir Bannon has suggested a toast to the king, as the House Nymerian wines are served with the dessert course.
Do it, do it, do it.
I don't know, man.
We don't say anything. We just raise our glasses.
All right, well then we will. We will raise our glasses
Stand and
And-
raise.
and like towards the royal table.
You get a faint nod of the head through kind of cat-like, half-lidded eyes that are still fucking gorgeous, don't get me wrong, from Queen Cersei, who likes a good wine. Robert doesn't seem to notice. The serving girl that is pouring for him has somehow ended up in his lap until he remembers himself and sends her away with a few swats. You do, however, hear a clank at the far end of the table, and it would appear that Adam Dannett has refused his Nymerian wine by putting his glass on the horizontal rather than the vertical. He didn't pour it out, but he has contemptuously, just kind of knocked it over instead of accepting any wine from House Nymerian. And it puts a bit of a damper on the feast. But after the dessert courses have been served, that's when this wine came, everyone is free to mingle again. And they're certainly going to keep the food coming and bring it out to the tables, especially the drink. But you notice some of the more seasoned hands here in King's Landing, as soon as the desserts begin to be served, some of them begin to step up and politely away from the tables to start going for walks in the night air and doing other King's Landing-y stuff. So there's no visible responses to your toast. A scattering of noblemen partway down the table return it, politely. You're not ignored and accosted by everyone or anything like that. But it just seems like King Robert didn't notice being King Robert, and it was not returned by Adam Dannett. But just as it kind of sinks in that, oh yes, I suppose that is the dessert course, I am, finishing the dizzy montage scene of the feast, and it's just about time to start to do something. And an almost alarmingly handsome gentleman approaches your end of the table from where some reachmen were down at the other end. He's got very even, smooth-skinned, symmetrical features, and a very nattily trimmed brown beard that looks like rich, fertile soil. And he's wearing the green and gold of House Tyrell. And he gives the Lady Reyna an impeccably flawless bow, and then straightens. Ladies and sirs of House Nymerian, I wonder if perhaps I might have a moment of your time.
Do we
Do you
invite him to
recognize-
sit with us, or do we get up with him?
He wants us to go with him, I think. Well, of course, sir.
I am Sir Garland Tyrell. I am at your service, but before that, I'm afraid I'm at the service of my family. And I have been asked to fetch you. Rather forcefully, I'm afraid. The asking of me, not of you, of course. But perhaps we might away to the gardens for a moment.
It was
Yeah,
a,
a good walk would do just fine.
exactly. It was a long feast. It would be nice to take the air.
He gives a nod off to one side, and a handful of servants with flagons of wine precede you as you make your way out. And he waits for each of the ladies to stand. He offers the crook of his arm to the Lady Reyna. He's a tall drink of water and pretty broad in the shoulder, too. He might not be quite as pretty as his younger brother, the famed Knight of Flowers, but he's certainly a good bit knightlier, a bit more rugged and that sort of thing. And if he isn't as pretty as the famous Knight of Flowers, you are hesitant to imagine how pretty the Knight of Flowers must be.
Right?
He is a very good-looking fellow, very neat, short, brown hair, broad in the shoulders, impeccably dressed in green and gold, and he keeps just the perfect pace for walking a lady through the gardens. Like, you imagine they are raised to learn the different speeds, like a horse is taught canter and trot and charge and gallop. Like, he's like, oh yes, of course, this is leading a lady through the gardens after dusk, but on a well-trod path. Like he knows exactly the speed to go. And the lot of you follow on your way out. As you, the stream boss has been defeated. I apologize. Excellent work, Oz. The destiny point goes to Robert Baratheon. Fantastic. I'm going to spend that as a narrative plot point, plot adjustment thing later on. Don't worry, you'll know when it happens.
Great. Thank you, Oz.
Yeah, good stuff, Oz. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, it's a thoroughly pleasant stroll, and then you notice there's some statues here in the gardens. There's all sorts of gorgeous trees and some shrubbery and all sorts of flowers that you're sure are even better in the daytime, but all tinted silver by the moon. It's all really quite gorgeous and romantic. A few of you might wish for a moment that the rest of your family wasn't here, and it was just you and Sir Garland and several flagons of wine.
Right?
But
Or someone else.
then you make your way past a pair of statues that actually aren't statues. And it almost takes you a moment because these guys are almost 7 feet tall and they are identical to each other. And they have the sort of fantastic mustachios that you normally only see on a fanciful portrait or a statue. And these guys are identical twins that are certainly much closer to 7 feet tall than 6. And they are also standing garbed in the colors of House Tyrell. And they part before you and just kind of flank you. And then well behind them in like a small gazebo where she's already tut-tutting and pecking at the servants and shooing them away after they leave their flagons of wine and some tankards and all that stuff. You see, especially compared to her bodyguards, a thoroughly diminutive woman that nonetheless has a presence all her own that would rival and perhaps in this setting exceed that of King Robert. And Garland steps away from the Lady Reyna for a moment and sketches another perfect bow and says, "Sirs, ladies, squire, might I present my grandmother, the Lady Olenna of House Tyrell."
Big curtsy.
It is a pleasure,
Same.
my lady.
All of the manners.
And she turns her wizened face towards the lot of you with eyes that are still bright and sharp, despite the wrinkles that surround them. She gives you all a look. Well, you're polite enough, I suppose. But if I'm to do this favor for that Maykar, at least give me a better look at what I'm working with. All right, you lot, stand up. Tallest to shortest. Yes, you bastard there on the end. Line up for me. Let me get a good look. Go on then. Shoulders up, guts in, chests out.
Very well.
You too, dearie. And at the chest out, she gives Bela a very pointed look. You haven't much to work with, dear. Do what you can with it. And you, shoulders out. Little one, what's your... Oh, dear, one of those. Well, shoulders back then. Draw the eye away from the unfortunate. Not to worry, not to worry. Stand as tall as you can, dearie. You're still growing, I hope. Right then. Let's see what ingredients I have for this stew that Makey wants me to cook.
Makey, my lady?
Oh,
I think he means Grandpa Maker, Raina.
Oh, indeed. He's not my grandfather, though, nor is he my lord. Makey and I go well back. And back very well. Don't give me that look. I wasn't born dry as Dorn, nor him limp as a rope. Yes, I mean exactly what you think I mean, children.
Oh, my lord.
We know each other quite well.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to keep my composure as much as I can. Mm-hmm.
Stand up in her strength.
I see I've shocked you. Good. But put on your prettiest faces. And let's see what I have to work with here.
No shock here, my lady.
We'll start with you, then. And she gives Lucaris a look. Firstborn son, but you're Dornish, so that doesn't quite count, does it? Have you squirted out any bastards yet, boy?
That I know of.
Good, let's keep it that way. Make sure you don't follow up with any of them, just in case. It tarnishes the reputation and makes my job harder. In fact, try not to be seen visiting these pillow houses anymore. You're already making my work hard enough. But, I suppose there's something... what's that? Stoop down here, boy. Let me get a look at you. Closer. No. Let me see the top of your head, boy. I'm not going to get drawn in by those eyes. Ah, look at those roots. You dye your hair. How adorable. Stop doing it at once. The silver-haired you Valyrian folk is one of the few things still going for you under Robert's regime. Black hair is easy to come by, and she gives Oris a pointed look. But that silver is one of the things that we can work with. Stop the dyeing immediately.
I have no idea what's happening, but yes, my lady, of course.
You don't need to know what's happening, dear. This sort of thing best left to your betters. And in this, I assure you, I quite am. Well,
no doubt there.
Speaking of black hair, though, how about you? And she turns and looks at Bela with this face that is, in its way, certainly more fearsome than any tilt in the courtyard, or indeed the bloodlusty roar of the bandit that legitimately wants to kill you. You look very, very Dornish, but I suppose with the right crowd I could work with that. Straight as a spear and almost as flat, but with the right crowd I can also work with that, I suppose. Secondborn, that's too bad, but...
Just by a few minutes, my lady.
Indeed, but no one cares, dear. It could have been 5 years.
I'm gonna nudge her. Like,
Oh my god.
Aside from hitting people with sticks, which a great many of my grandsons do, but none of my granddaughters, what is it you're supposed to be good at, Bela? Your grandfather didn't tell me much else about you, and I hope I've something else.
I protect our house. I lead our armies.
Yes, how fantastically droll. So... Yes, no, that will not do at all. We'll need to get you some sort of hobby, or at least lie about one until we get you pregnant from some husband of yours, but we'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. And you, and she turns and looks at Vannon. Yes, you're an entirely different class of ingredient, but the letter was quite specific. What about you? What are your hobbies, boy?
Violence and animals, my lady.
Oh!
You're You're not a Bolton lad. Let's phrase that rather differently. Violence doesn't make you special. Any twat can hit another twat with a stick. But at least it's a bit more expected in you than in her. When you say animals, I suppose you mean riding them or teaching them to do little tricks?
Yes. Hound, raven, horse. I hunt.
Oh, you hunt. Fantastic. How excruciatingly exclusive and unique you are among highborn lads. Still, let me have a look at you, boy. I'm not checking you for lice, but give me that hair. Huh. This isn't dye. Are you ill?
I beg your pardon.
You're going gray, boy. Are you also going thin? Are you sickly, or is it just an affectation? What is going on above your ears?
I think it's simply the benefit of Blackwood blood.
Ah, yes. What got squirted into whoever your mother is, I suppose. That wasn't blood, dear. If you work with animals, you should know that. But yes, going gray. Suppose that's rather charming in its way. I'll speak to Makey about your mother. Perhaps that will give me something more to work with. Oh, speaking of bastards. Ye gods, you're a big one. And she squints at Oris just up and down. Yeah. So, Makey tells me that woolly fellow told you, yes? And Oris just gapes wide-eyed at all of you, looking for some tip or permission or like, what is he supposed to do here?
Just answer her question.
Yes, yes, my lady. Sir Will told me, I know I'm a Waters, and I know who my mum was. He said he'd tell me die in good time, but he's not here, and I suspect it's not a good time. But I don't know what to say to you. I am very sorry. And she goes, yes, no, it's fine, dear. I don't expect you to know much. I know who your father was, and your mother, and I know who raised you, and thoughts aren't what you're here for. And don't worry, I know that you are good at what you are good at also. Well, still, you catch the eye, at least. But you... No, we'll save you for last. Back to you then, yes, with the leg. Now, don't take it personally, dear. One of my grandsons has much the same affliction, and for much the same reason. Though, his was a proud reach courser instead of whatever shaggy thing you were riding with the Manualies. But, not to worry, dearie. I found him a husband despite his leg, and I will try to find you one. Makey tells me you're smart. Tell me something clever.
What? On what subject, my lady?
I suppose that's a bit clever in its own way. What is something that you learned since arriving in the capital? A proper city, not like that frozen, salty wasteland the Manderleys have. Atrocious people, the Manderleys. But, I'm sorry, continue.
Sorry, Rusty, you were breaking up massively there and I didn't hear you.
Tell me something you've learned since you arrived in the capital, dear. A fine city, this. Not like that White Harbor that those atrocious Manderleys run.
Oh, well, I have learned rather to our cost that the Kettle Blacks and the Freys are a bunch of blackguards.
Everyone knows that the late Lord Frey is, well, the late Lord Frey. How did you learn that about the rest of the Freys, however, his sprawling brood of bastards?
Oh, a couple of them attacked Oris.
Oh, that's enough. If it was a fight, I don't particularly care. But fine. You've learned that the Freys are of questionable character. I'll write back to Makey and inform him at once of your keen perceptive eye. And the kettle somethings you said?
Yes, Kettleblacks. Not sworn to anyone in particular.
Oh, well then
Little above brigands.
I'm afraid I don't care much about them either, dear, but very good job learning that Lord Frey is of questionable repute and that brigands and sellswords might not be trustworthy. I'll let Makey know that you're not just clever, but quick. I'll tell him bookish instead of clever, I suppose. Still, you're handsome enough in the face, and you do have the hair. Yes, you'll do. And you're the youngest, so I suppose I can take my time with you, but ye gods, the lot of you are already so old. But, speaking of ye gods already so old, let's examine the blushing young maiden of House Nymerian. Well, you've got the hair and eyes at least, and something like the teats for it. But, you know you're getting close to past your prime, dear girl.
She's mean.
I am aware of my age, and I'm also aware of my value as an heir to the house. I am also aware that your browbeating doesn't change any of that.
I assure you, dear, 2 of those 3 things you think you're aware of, you're entirely wrong. Nothing but your age is the one that you've got right. Oh, and you there, Bela, don't look smug. You're only a few minutes younger. So, the 2 of you, wrong side of 20, and still, have you at least your maiden heads?
We spend an awful lot of time a horse, my lady.
Not the way that Rivers does, I hope.
I suspect.
Oh, just standing there and then just. Wait, what?
Wait, what?
I suspect, like everything that we have said, that was a wrong answer, Rainer.
Don't worry about it too much, dear. There are no right ones when trying to make a good first impression with me. Still, none of you peed, none of you fainted, and none of you fled outright. Those are all quite commendable of you in their own way. But with so many of you completely distracted by poking people with sharp metal things, I suppose a lack of fainting and wetting yourselves is what could have been expected. Well, I'll write back to Makey and tell him that things will progress as we've already been discussing, but, well, you're a pretty enough lot, I suppose. So, it won't be the most odious of these tasks that I've set for myself.
Am I to understand that our grandfather has elicited your assistance in finding us husbands and wives?
Well, I'll have to let Makey know maybe you're the clever one, because, yes, that is precisely what I have been asked to do. It's going to be rather difficult with some of you, but not to worry, I am excellent at this sort of thing. Ask any of my boys. Well.
What about Garland? What about Garland?
Boys ripen more slowly than girls, my dear, and the fruit grows rotten later. I am taking my time with young Sir Garland. Not to worry, the house has been propagated. The heir to my home, and she gives Adam a look, the one with your young brother's problem, he I wed without issue, and they're doing just fine. So, I'm sure I can do something with the rest of you.
Well, yes, it's just It's just a twisted leg. Everything else still works.
That's good to hear.
I'm sure some blushing maiden will be thrilled to hear that. But with second-born sons that are the fourth-born in a Dornish house, the legs are rather important, dear. And she gives you and Bela both long looks. You are supposed to be the one that goes riding and stabbing things. She's supposed to be the one that's bookish and smart. But it seems that I'm a few years too late because you two have already soured that up.
And apparently I'm not bookish and smart anymore either. I'll have to find another talent.
If you can, that would be fine.
I know, right? So
I spent a destiny point to kill Olenna Tyrell.
I think she's lovely.
I'm not calling her a bitch in character. It's just in my head.
So she lets out a sigh. She goes, but Makey also assures me that you lot are out to impress the city this 7 day. And I'll not truly begin my work until after you've begun that work. So, do your best, dearies, to be impressive this 7 day. Tourneys seem to be what most of you think you're good at. So let's make certain that that is true. But still, the Nymerian name is good with some people, and again, some of you are pretty enough. And, well, I told Makey I would, and I do love a good challenge. Like my idiot boy Mace got him a fine match, and the grandchildren have been spot on. So, if I can get Mace to give me the grandchildren he has, then I'm sure I can do something with you lot. Actually, you, and she gives Lucaris a look. I already know you like wine. How do you feel about islands?
I'd love to try one.
The Arbor, dear. Do you think that if you were to sail there, you'd get seasick and make a bigger fool of yourself?
Bigger? No, I don't believe so.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, I suppose perhaps I can work with that. Oh, Makey. Tell your grandfather he'll owe me big after this one. Don't worry, though. I'll tell him myself in letters. Well, anyways, back to the feast, I suppose.
no,
What? Oh, no.
no.
I'm thoroughly daunted. Please continue.
I take a seat at the table with her.
Well, aren't you just brassy?
My lady, what do you know about Adam Dennett?
Adam Dannett isn't my job or my problem, but I know the boy looks positively green about the gills and constipated about something.
Well, he's... You know what? I should have said that in the first place about the thing that I learned, that he is labouring under the impression that on our way to King's Landing we slaughtered some of his peasants, despite us being nowhere near his lands.
Right. I'd heard something or other of that, but the death of a few dozen small folk shouldn't be any major impediment more than the rest of all this.
But we didn't.
Of course not.
It's my concern's more about that he's the way he was behaving earlier seems like he might start trouble, and we don't want to have our first visit here in the presence of the king, no less, to be marred by him trying to sully our reputation.
Oh, don't worry, dearie. With the king you've picked, I'm sure your reputation's already not that fine.
She's right. We will proceed just as we had planned. Lady Olena
anything
will
else?
do.
Sorry.
Pardon? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
No, I was about to speak to her, but you go ahead.
No. I was talking to you, so you go ahead.
Will there be anything else, my lady?
I wouldn't mind if one of you did some pouring for me before you left. Make it one of the squires or bastards or something, though. I wouldn't want the rest of you to demean yourselves before me.
Step forward and do so.
Good lad, good lad. I suppose it makes sense that a river's is good at pouring, but there we are. Fine enough. Since one of you've already had a seat, I suppose the rest of you can sit and have a glass if you'd like, but you don't want to be missing from this sort of feast for entirely too long. You might miss something salacious.
Quite right, my lady. I think I will return to the feast, since I should be learning more information.
As will I.
I might impose upon my lady for a small cup if you would indulge me with one small bit.
I'm not pouring it for you, but go ahead.
You mentioned something about my mother.
I did.
Is there more you might tell me, or do you leave that to my erstwhile guardian?
He wasn't terribly specific about it either way, and I do feel like he owes me one after this favor, so I suppose I'll let you know. It was a bracken.
Not expected.
No, dearie, you rather quite weren't.
Touché. Oh wait, there's no French. But if there were, it would be Martel.
Out of character, quick meta note for those that might not know. The Blackwoods and the Brackens are the Hatfields and McCoys of the setting. They have been feuding for centuries, and for Lord Titus Blackwood to beget a child upon a Bracken woman would be terribly scandalous. The bloodlines have crossed in some doomed Romeo and Juliet stories over the centuries, but that's still a pretty big deal. So yeah, that's where that bit of a surprise came from. She says it like she doesn't particularly care about the feud, because she probably doesn't feuds and the Riverlands or someone else's affair. But yeah, there you go. There's a bomb from the Queen of Thorns. You're welcome.
Thank you, my lady.
Does Vannon look okay with that?
Vannon is having feels and will deal with it when he can. Thank you, my lady.
Oh, come on, this
won't
is
trouble you
Westeros.
any further.
Feelings are like a fine court. You keep them in the dark and ignore them for 20 years and then give them to your son when he grows up.
It's true. It is known.
So, Sir Lucaris was fleeing the field of battle. I believe the Lady Bela was planning the same, as was young
Indeed.
Ash. Sir Vannon, are you fairly content with that discussion, in as much as you don't want it to continue?
Oh, I'd love for it to continue, but I'm also not going to cross swords with the Queen of Thorns. So, just say my polite thanks, accept this newfound wisdom, and return with my betters.
Yeah,
and that leaves,
I'm slaying the mean lady.
And that leaves the Lady Reyna, who has not decided if she's getting up yet.
I am, but I wasn't going to leave Vannon or Adam unprotected with the Lady Olena.
She can't hurt me.
She already did hurt me.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Bring it. Everything that doesn't break me makes me stronger. I'm a bastard. I have so little to lose.
Unfortunately, Adam is a soft, schmallowy, piglety type creature.
Oh.
So once they have taken their leave, I will, with your permission, my lady.
You can leave at any time, dear. Sir Garland had retreated after the lot of you went in, and he was waiting for Lady Reyna, a polite distance away. So the rest of you could have left before her, and he's smiling amiably at each of you, and also giving you the occasional kind of wincing, apologetic shrug, the way knights do after, like, one of them sees another one get downed by a tourney lance. Like that same sort of like, yep, I know them feels, bro. Right? Like, it's like, yeah, no, sorry, that sucked, huh? So he's giving you perfectly affable, amiable, mildly apologetic looks as you go filing past him. But he does wait for the heiress of the house to leave, and then once again offers her the crook of his arm to walk her back.
And I take it.
And then they will join the rest of you back at the banquet hall. And he'll give you all another just apologetic and also fairly dreamy smile. I am sorry about that, but in my experience, it's best to pull the arrow out all in one quick go. So I thought it would be better to grab the lot of you instead of one at a time.
Sir Garland, is she like that with everyone?
Oh, no, she's normally a bit prickly.
Never mind.
They don't call her the Queen of Thorns for nothing, young lord.
No, I suppose not.
She has decided she has earned for herself a sharpness of tongue that would do the sword of any knight proud. But don't fear, she really is perhaps the best woman in all the realm at making these sorts of matches. And if you aren't the heir, she's a bit more willing to let you marry for love, inasmuch as she might present you with 2 or 3 options. That's how I got my wife. It's not as though we're not already joined to House Fossaway plenty of ways. But it didn't gain us a new alliance, but as she saw it, it strengthened an existing one, and I'm as happy as any second-born son could have expected. So most of you should have similar worries, at least, and perhaps a short menu of spouses to choose from when the time comes.
Well, it's all quite overwhelming.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was coming here to get married. Fucking hell.
I don't see why everyone's so scared of her. It's nice to meet someone who speaks so forthright.
I found her quite charming.
When she was insulting you or when she was insulting the rest of them?
A little bit at first, and then a lot after.
I take her insults as easily as I take bruises at the sparring line.
Oh,
Every one of them teaches you to be a little bit sharper in the end.
oh God.
Sir
God,
Garland,
it was awful.
Sir Garland gives Vannon a wry smile. It looks like someone sharpened your blade just this week.
Yes, the kettle blacks, I'm given to understand.
Yes, King's Landing can be a dangerous place.
Is it common for tourney knights to beat upon their would-be competitors and tell them to intentionally lose?
That on the tourney night. Some of us don't have to.
Touché, my lord. Damn it, French. Well put, my lord.
I'd suggest good Arbor Gold. It's generally stronger than it tastes, and it helps take the sting off a bit after an encounter with Grandmother. If there's nothing else I can do for you, sirs and ladies.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
It was very nice to meet you, Sir Garland.
It is kind of you all to say so. I hope I'll see you later this week, though I hope not opposite one another in the lists. Good day. and he will sketch you a polite bow, and off he glides to go be dreamy somewhere else.
Dreamy speed.
Does anyone else have immediate plans, or do we want the next NPC to get thrown your way?
Yeah, I think all Adam's planning on is a stiff drink.
You're all just shell-shocked.
Indeed. Yeah.
I'm honestly debating, do I get drunk, go find my dad and say, "So it's Bracken, asshole"?
Well, I mean, I think you should at least tell him that you're a knight now. I mean, I think that's a nice thing.
Oh, I'd rather he found that out opposite me.
Oh, I don't think that's healthy. But you know what? You know what's best for you, I guess.
I really don't. Adam, I really don't.
I was just saying that to be polite, Sir Mammon.
I'm the reasonable one until daddy issues.
Lucaris will grin and sit down and have some more wine.
I think I will go for that that wine.
The Arbor Gold, please.
Yes.
Sorry, 1 second. I've got to find a document. Oris, for his part, also seems to have gone straight to drinking. And he looks almost as in shock as Orton Lucas did about 20 hours ago when he hacked a dude's face in half. Like, Oris is just like, what? Like, he's almost two-fisting it with goblets of wine right now.
Yeah, I think Oris and I are going to be like in the Vietnam War movies where one guy's got his guts hanging out and the other one's going, "We're going to get through this, okay? We're going to have a beer when we get home and everything's going to be all right. Yeah, sure, you're going to be fine. You're not going to be fine."
Yeah. So yeah, Oris drinks fairly heavily and is just kind of looking kind of wide-eyed and shell-shocked at you guys. The feast itself, or rather the kind of after feast, is going on. King Robert is up at his big chair, drinking and being loud. But you do get an excited visitor as your cousin comes sliding through the crowd again in his yellow gold thread and black leathers of House Will. And he makes a beeline straight for Bela. And he goes, "Cousin, I have fantastic news."
That's great. What is it?
I plied the Florent Master of Lists with a bit of wine and a bit of coin, and though they're not to be announced until the morrow, I know who your first challenger is.
That indeed is good news.
It's Gennady Shanin, the man who stole my father's sword.
Interesting.
By interesting, you mean fantastic.
Indeed.
Cousin, I need that favor. Take him to the ground. We need him to draw that blade and use it where I can get a good look. It can't be lances only. I need him to draw steel. Please, cousin, or sorry, I think I said sister instead of cousin, my bad. It was please, cousin. You said you'd do anything to help.
Sure. Yeah, I'll definitely take him to the ground. Well, I mean, I'll knock him off his horse, then I'll join him down there.
He makes kind of an apologetic wince.
That was some awesome smack talk there.
He goes, "I'm afraid I'll need you to fall off your horse and challenge him. If you just unhorse him, he's not obligated to take the fight afoot. If he unhorses you and you challenge, though, he is. You can still certainly win the round. I need you to let him unhorse you."
I don't suppose there's a way to, like, get off the horse first and be like, "Who needs horses, bitch?"
Not quite.
That's called the melee.
And this is in a meta narrative sense again. King Robert is such a fan of boots on the ground and blades and bruises that he allows any tilt to be challenged afoot. So whoever is downed, if they immediately rise back up, and we'll go back over this when the joust starts and the mechanics come up. But he's going to let anybody challenge on foot if they are unhorsed. So he's not quite asking Bela to throw the match, but he's asking her potentially to look like a bit worse of a rider than she is by kind of taking that first hit and then challenging on foot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the mechanics of how that would play out.
Yeah, in addition, it's also not, pain-free to fall from a horse at speed.
Right, because we have also discussed some of those mechanics. But yeah, that's how he's looking at there. So it's kind of a big ask, but it's not, like I said, he's not asking you to actually throw in the tournament or whatever. But
And another thing is that if you do this, the person that you faced on the next round will underestimate your ability at horse.
Cousin, I told you that I would help you in this, and I'm not going to back out. I will do this.
all right, he grabs you and pulls you into a dance, and you are whisked away as he's just beaming. And it looks like he wants to just like pick you up and do like a whole Lion King, like, look how good my cousin is, right? But instead, he just whisks you away to where there's a bit of dancing going on, and his teeth flash as bright as they did while he was slitting throats last night.
Wow.
Meanwhile, for the rest of you, that was, by the way, the other boon that House Will got. I made exactly one adjustment to the randomized tourney brackets that I created using Excel. That was the royal boon that was given to House Will, was that I thought I would arrange things just perfectly for your cousin, the Will of Will, to potentially get the information he's after.
So is this the plan is for him to draw the sword so we can verify that he does in fact have it,
Right.
and then confront him after the tilt about it?
One would know.
And then something after the tilt about it.
Okay.
You
Maybe
know,
steal
I don't know
just
what.
is.
It's out of
Yeah.
my hands.
So, but yeah, so he
Okay.
he wants you to force the fight afoot, so that he can get a look at the steel, so that was the royal boon that House Will got from a couple sessions ago, and then the dancing actually stops not long afterwards. There's just maybe a minute or so for you guys to still kind of make recovery tests to get back your composure social damage after the unrelenting assault of the withering Queen of Thorns. And for some of you to look for solace at the bottom of a cup, perhaps while glaring balefully across a feast hall at your father. I don't know who I could mean there. But then the music is interrupted by some roaring toasts as Robert Baratheon once again mildly exerts himself and raises his voice a little in order to be heard in a booming, thunderous roar that fills the entire Queen's Hall, which is literally like the second biggest room in Westeros. It's outsized a bit by the feast halls at Harrenhal, but it never got melted by dragons, so it's got that going for it on its Realtor.com report. So, there's this roar and this kind of clapping, thunderous sound as people start slamming their tankards on the tables and kind of cheering. And then Robert holds up a hand for silence and says, "Enough! Enough! I need you lot to leave before too much later so that there's some drink and ale left for me. And so that some of you can be up early enough for my daughter's tourney to start at high sun, as has been meticulously scheduled by the hand John Aaron and the Honorable Master of the Lists. High sun's early enough for me, lads. Yes, plenty early. So, before I bid the lot of you get the hell out of my house, a toast to the glory and the honor of all those present. And then you guys hear another metal tankard clatter against the stone wall and roll against the floor. And young Adam Dannett raises his voice after throwing his tankard across the room.
Oh no.
He says,
Oh no.
"The honor, your grace? You speak of the honor of all those present when you know that 15 of my small folk who did wrong to none were butchered by this lot on their way to come to your house. You know what must be known of their character. I beseeched you since I arrived. I pled with you, I begged you. I knelt before you after my father's death and pledged you my king and sovereign. And in exchange, you promised me the king's justice. And you feast them in your own hall and speak of their honor." King
Right.
Robert takes in a deep breath and gets ready to roar when Queen Cersei just puts a hand on his arm. Just a light touch, and the king turns red in a way of a guy that gets ready to yell and then can't. So, like, you can see, like, the heart disease, right? As he's, like, swallowing it down, and he's ready to just start yelling. He goes, "Damn it, boy. I told you we'd speak on this later." And then Adam Dannett, who, like, stomps up close enough that the King's Guard pointedly don't move to interpose, because the King's Guard don't have to. They just give him a look that reminds them that they're there, and that literally the two best swordsmen in the realm are between him and the king. They just give him a little bit of a side eye, and he stops, and instead he turns and kind of beseeches the crowd from near the royal table. And you can see that he is nervous as hell. Like, knees weak, palms are sweaty, there's vomit on his tunic already, that type of look. And he's, pale and sweating, despite that it's kind of warm. But he just kind of looks to the lot of you, and his voice almost breaks. And he says, "Not a month ago, my grandfather died and left me our house. I haven't even a sister anymore since she went missing. And now, these traitors, these Targaryen loyalists, butcher my small folk over nothing. And the king denies me my justice, and I will not have it. Justice delayed is no justice." And he pulls off a glove, and he throws it in from the far side of the room, in your direction. And he says, "Lady Rhaena Nymerian, heir to your house and warrior in the Dornish tradition, I challenge you, in the name of the Seven, to stand for the blood of my house that you butchers spilled on your way to the king's own home." And we cut to black. At the end of the episode, roll credits,
You son of a bitch!
and some cheerful music commences.
With every bit of me, I wanted to stand up and answer him.
I was this close to just being like friggin' Patrick Stewart and Dune. Let me, please, my lord.
Mm-hmm. Same.
This guy needs to get stabbed.
You know, honestly, I think this guy might be as misled as we are.
I think he is too. I think he really.
Well, now he's going to get stabbed and be misled.
No, we gotta knock his ass down and then offer him a hand up and say, we didn't do this, but we'll help you find who did. Because you really think we just leave a shield there?
I mean, that was pretty much what I was planning, but now there's a massive spanner in my works, so I can't do that now. Like,
no, this isn't. This is an icebreaker.
It's a little late for that now. After what he's done in front of the court.
At this point, we have one recourse, and that is to accept his challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and we can talk about this
later. Yeah. Hi, everybody. How'd you like that fancy food and stuff?
So hungry.
I want our viewers to think back to the last hour of the show, and I want everyone to thank Oz for letting us have this extra hour, because we packed a lot of awesome into that extra hour. And I want you to know we are going to go with 4-hour episodes from here on, because we have a really great group that likes to roleplay lots of cool, nitty-gritty little details, and it often felt like just as we were getting up to steam, we had to cut it, because 3 hours to me feels pretty short. But I think this 4-hour is going to really let us quite hit our stride in proper Garland Tyrell fashion. Who knows exactly what speed to go. So I hope that you guys did enjoy the bonus content and conflict that we got by not having to cut it an hour earlier. And I thank everybody for joining us. I hope that everyone's going to join us again in a couple of weeks. We've got some schedule changes coming up in the next month or two. We're gonna have to clip-clop and kind of miss a step and stagger our schedule. We'll tell you more about it as it gets closer, but we want to make things easy for our other hosts here on the Shadowcaster Network, so we'll let you know when that gets closer. But right now, believe me, things are only just heating up. This is all still very much the first arc of what is essentially the prequel and opening to the campaign that I have planned for you guys. So, I thank you for joining us. I hope you all have a good time. Looks like currently squatting on the Iron Throne is our very own Shadowcaster Network superstar Oz. So Oz, make sure that you talk to me sometime in the next couple weeks and let me know what family you want to grant a royal boon to. And you and I got time. We'll work in those details later. But thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope that we'll see you again in the next couple of weeks. Keep an eye out for us on social media. I've started a thread on a big forum where I'm actually compiling all of our VODs and posting them in order. So make sure you watch me on Facebook. I go by Rusty Zerman there. So make sure you keep an eye out there. And if you want to get caught up and see just how much narrative power you could be wielding, take a look at those old VODs and let's get everybody caught up. Make sure you have fun. Make sure you join in next time. Everybody enjoy Game of Thrones tonight. For the record, I have time-stamped to myself an email with my own predictions for tonight's episodes. So we'll see if I get right on the money or not. Have fun with your Game of Thrones. Thanks for kind of tailgating with us in the parking lot as a pre-Game of Thrones show. And we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Vala Mogulis.
Bye.